What is good, everybody, man? Hoping, man, everyone had a good weekend. I can't believe I'm saying this, man. Week 12 is over. Like we're like Thanksgiving is this Thursday. The FCS regular season is pretty much over outside of two games this week. You got the Turkey Day Classic on Thursday, Alabama State versus UAPB, if I'm not mistaken. And then you got, of course, the Bayou Classic next Saturday in the first round of the playoffs. But man, this season has flown by, to say the least. And this weekend, I was in Lorman, Mississippi, Alcorn State versus Jackson State. Listen, if you reached out to me by text, by social media, listen, I'm still trying to get back to everybody. My phone did not have service from I was on campus at about 6 a.m. and I didn't get signal till I reconnected to the press box Wi-Fi at the end of the game about 7 or so. So I didn't have service for like 12 hours. So if you reached out to me and I did not answer, did not get back to you, listen, I'm still trying to answer emails and things like that because it was the last week of the regular season and I didn't have service all day long. But on this episode, we're going to go through some of the games that we previewed on the Week 12 preview, go through and recap some of those big games. Also, FCS playoff bracket was announced. I know that's a huge topic everyone wants to talk about. Listen, we're going to talk about the snubs. As for you, Florida A&M fans, Austin Peay fans, UT Martin, Rhode Island, we're going to talk about the seeding and how it was kind of atrocious. We're going to talk about some of the first round matchups and which ones you should be excited for, and who right now has probably the best path to the FCS National Championship, which will be played in Frisco, Texas, in early January. And then I also wanted to just talk about my experience at the Soul Bowl in Lorman. And I'm just going to say this. Listen, I know there's a lot of people watching Scotty's channel right now. Um, that was the most fun and the best experience I probably had covering a game since I started this. Listen, I know there's been some people to talk about their experience, but if you weren't there, I really don't even think me explaining it could describe the environment and the energy in that stadium. And just the whole lead up to the game and everything like that. I mean, it was something that I can't even I still can't even wrap my head around, man. And I had an absolute blast. And I'm looking to make a Soul Bowl in Jackson next, because I can only imagine how great that would be as well. But man, Lorman really did it big. And then also, man, shout out to Mr. Kincaid. I know you called me. I was producing the Auburn Live show. Thank you so much, man, for your hospitality, the amazing tailgate. And if you're going to tailgate and you're not going to do it like Mr. Kincaid and the A team does, then you might as well not even go out there and tailgate. They had tables set up, they had breakfast, snack, lunch, dinner. It does. I mean, they had a full course meal all throughout the day, man. So shout out to Mr. Kincaid for inviting me over to his tailgate, and they got the dopest setup that I've seen out of anyone that I've been to that I've been to so far. And the weather was okay. The weather held up, but it was TJ. I'm sure you were there. It was cold as hell at that game. I know on the, in terms of the app saying I think it was like 40, 50 degrees. If you were there, that wasn't the case. It was freezing in that stadium. I don't know if it was the wind coming through that stadium or what, but it was freezing in that stadium this weekend, man. I had a hoodie on with something underneath the hoodie, long pants, everything, man. And I was shaking toward the end of the game, man. So if my camera footage is a little shaky, I apologize, but man, it was cold out there, man. And I'm gonna need a bigger jacket next time I go to Lorman for the Soul Bowl. Man, I loved it, Mr. Gaddy. Man, I hate that we didn't catch up at the game, man. But I got to meet a bunch of people. I got to catch up with Zoe. I met him once before, but man, I got to catch up with him on the sidelines this weekend. I mean, I got to meet Ken Clark. He found me before the game. Cut Day was there. Shout out to him and everyone else I got to meet and hang out with on the sideline, man. Appreciate y'all for coming up to me and everything. And I had an absolute blast. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about my experience when we get to that part of the game. No players of the week this week. We just had too many topics to talk about. And so I'm going to breeze through some of the recaps just because I know at the end of the day, a lot of y'all already kind of caught up on what's happening. But Paris, I saw I appreciate that, Paris, but, quickly, Incarnate Word, co-champs of the Southland, a dominant 66-7 win over Northwestern State this weekend to clinch the co-championship and also lock up a seed in the playoffs, which it was announced today that Incarnate Word will get a first round bye, host a second round playoff game next or in 2 weeks. But man, Lindsey Scott, he has his performance this year. I'm going to talk about it more on the preview episode. His performance this year is unlike anything I've ever seen in terms of a progression. I know a lot of people talk about Hendon Hooker and his time at Virginia Tech not looking anything like his time at Tennessee. If you go look up Lindsey Scott highlights from Nicholls State and compare it to what Lindsey Scott is doing right now for Incarnate Word, you would not even understand it was the same player. This weekend, Lindsey Scott, 382 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, 65 yards rushing, and a rushing touchdown. He also, if for the regular season at least, he has reset the NCAA FCS record for passer efficiency with a like 212 rating, which is like 30 points more than what the record already was. And the record has stood since 1993, which is 3 years before I was born. So shout out to Lindsey Scott. Also, Marcus Cooper. They were able to do whatever they wanted. Incarnate Word threw for 413, rushed for 373, and averaged 11 yards per carry as an entire team. It was an offensive explosion. They forced multiple turnovers this week, and they completely shut down what Northwestern State wanted to do. It's hard to really kind of go into a full breakdown of what happened, but man, 66-7 should tell you all you want. Incarnate Word is, you can sleep on them if you want. And I understand FCS playoff football is like playoff basketball in the NBA. It's different. It's a different level. But Incarnate Word has the offense right now to compete with almost anybody in the country. And when you have a quarterback playing at the level of Lindsey Scott, man, it's going to be a dangerous matchup for anybody in the FCS playoffs. So do not sleep on the Cardinals' first-year head coach, GJ Kinney, who's going to probably be on the show after the season and potentially talk about winning the FCS Coach of the Year, which he right now, it would be my favorite. Now, St. Francis clinches the sole lead in the NEC over Merrimack this weekend. Cole Doyle, 412 yards, 5 passing touchdowns. They shut down the passing attack of Merrimack. They also slowed down the rushing attack, which is one of the top in the NEC. And when you look at St. Francis, the wide receiving core is ridiculous. Dawson Snyder, 163, 2 touchdowns. Mekhi Jackson, one of the best freshmen in the country, 116 on 6 catches. And Elijah Sarrett, 2 receiving touchdowns as well. Another top freshman for St. Francis. This was a big one for St. Francis. They have to travel to Delaware in the first round of the playoffs. But right now, this offense is clicking on an extremely high level. They end the run of Sacred Heart in the NEC, and they beat a really good Merrimack team, which was not eligible for the postseason bid, but it didn't matter, man. St. Francis handled business this year, and that team deserves a lot of credit. We'll see how they hold up in the playoffs this weekend against the Delaware team. But we got to talk about this one. If you listen shout out to Gardner Webb. They played a hell of a game. But if you listen real closely, you can still hear A&T choking away this auto bid from the Big South. I don't know anybody in the national media or in the chat, or I don't, outside of everyone outside of Gardner Webb, I don't think anybody picked Gardner Webb to win this game outside of people inside that program. I mean, I think everybody thought A&T was going to win this game. And it's shout out to Trey Lamb and Gardner Webb for pulling it out. And also, man, the rushing attack of Gardner Webb going toe to toe with North Carolina A&T. Everyone talks about the rushing attack of A&T being explosive. And listen, Tootin did his thing, 108, 1 touchdown, 10 consecutive games, rushing for 100 yards for Bashil Tootin. But nobody else contributed, and Jalen Fowler consistently got sacked in the backfield and lost yardage for them. 87 total rushing yards for A&T, but they could not stop Gardner Webb in that front seven, man. 240 on the ground, almost 5 yards per carry. Nari Gaither, who was a all-conference running back, man, I interviewed him in the preseason. 107, 2 touchdowns. Jaden Brown did his thing on the ground. It came out that Gardner Webb actually had a better rushing attack this weekend than A&T, or at least they had a more diverse rush attack with more weapons. A&T's only weapon was Tootin, and it came back to bite them. Now, Zachary Leslie, I do want to say for A&T, he's a promising wide receiver, man. I really do like Leslie's game, but even outside of him, nobody in the wide receiving core was really a weapon outside of Leslie. It was Tootin or Leslie, and that was the only thing. And then also, quarterback play consistently bites A&T in big games. Jalen Fowler can put on some great performances, and he was playing consistent enough where I do think he was a top 5 quarterback in HBCU football. But then he comes out and plays like this. And I do want to say the offensive line for A&T, who I thought was one of the best in HBCU, probably one of the best in the Big South, they lost the front seven battle for one of the first times this year. And I think it got to Fowler. Once he started getting hit, once the pressure started getting to him, that's when Fowler became very inefficient and started to make mistakes. Those 2 interceptions were extremely costly. And I really do think, as crazy as it sounds, and I don't know if people are going to agree, it's almost like Gardner Webb snuck up on A&T. It really did, man. And Todd French for Gardner Webb is a legit pass rusher. I think he's going to be a first team all conference pick, potentially even get some looks as one of the later team All Americans on some publications. But so Tootin did take the Big South record. That was my next question to everyone in the chat. But yeah, he did. But they lost the front seven battle, and Gardner Webb was completely overlooked. If I'm not mistaken, Gardner Webb was picked mid-pack in the Big South. No one's really talking about him all year, and they come out and run through the Big South. And man, it was intense. And yeah, I mean, listen, I said don't sleep on them. I knew they were going to have some talent, but I did not see them going through the Big South like this. I'm not going to take credit for that. I totally thought this was Campbell or A&T's conference to lose. I thought Gardner Webb and Bryant would be right there in contention, but hey, that they executed on an extremely high level this weekend, and they won the games they needed to. Now, Gardner Webb going into the playoffs, we'll see what their potential is. That will be a team that if they win a first round game, they have a very young team with a very young head coach. It could be interesting to see what their future holds. Yeah, Campbell. I think Campbell had another losing season. I know Campbell beat Delaware State this weekend, champ, and impressively to say the least. So, how many HBCUs did Campbell play? They beat Central, they beat Delaware State, and they lost to A&T and Jack State. So Campbell went 2-2 in HBCU games this year. So Gardner Webb could mess around and win in the first round. I like Trey Lamb. I interviewed him at Big South Media Day, man. His energy is infectious. I love talking to him, and I'm hoping to talk to him again at Big South Media Day, potentially have him on the coach's corner with Coach Fred. Let's see, these are the Trent's players who supposedly could compete with NDSU. How? Oh, man. And then finally, man, in terms of notable games, Yale, Harvard. Yale gets in one, probably going to get some top 25 consideration. Yale really turned their season around. They started off a little bit shaky. Nolan Grooms was kind of doing his thing, but man, they ran the football against a Harvard front seven that I did not see coming. Harvard's front seven is one of the best in the FCS. Joshua Pittenberger, Trey Peterson, Nolan Grooms. It was a committee approach. Rushed for 219 this weekend against a really solid Harvard front seven, and they just won the line of scrimmage. They shut down Aiden Bogut, and Charlie Dean threw 4 interceptions. Harvard lost by 5 and threw 4 interceptions. That was the difference in the game. I don't care what anyone says. When your quarterback throws 4 interceptions, you can't do anything. And the Yale defense did their thing. Hamilton Moore, 2 of those interceptions. He was all over the field for the Bulldogs defense. Big win for Yale. The Ivy League season comes to a close. Of course, all y'all know, no postseason play for the Ivy League, but a big win for Yale over Harvard this weekend in the game. Now, some top FCS games, and then we're going to get into our Week 12 HBCU recap before we get into our games of the week. But North Dakota State, dominates North Dakota, and it came at the hands of, I'll give y'all one guess of what North Dakota State did really well. Just one guess, and has run the football. Now, this is the Bison were without All-American fullback Hunter Lipke for the first time this year, but Kobe Johnson, 115, 10 yards per carry this weekend. Cam Miller rushed for 5 touchdowns for the Bison. The Bison rushed for 363 yards, 6 touchdowns, and averaged 6.6 yards per carry as a team without their starting running back. It's next level, man. They dominated the line of scrimmage, and they absolutely shut down the quarterback Tommy Schuster this weekend. 42-21 Bison win. They get a seed. They get a bye week. But listen, if you can't stop the Bison rushing attack, you're not beating North Dakota State. That's just it. The only team that's been able to really slow them down in the FCS is South Dakota State. And in the playoffs, the Bison are going to run the football. And if you can't stop it, good luck beating the Bison in early December and January for the national championship. Now, a great game, Sac State, UC Davis. UC Davis needed this game to make the playoffs. They made a strong run. Miles Hastings throws for 300 yards, but Sac State escapes with a 27-21 win. And it was the rushing game again, man. 192 touchdowns on the ground. Cameron Scadabo did his thing. Asher O'Hara with 2 touchdowns. And if you follow me on Twitter, I tweeted out another front flip touchdown that he stuck the landing. Asher O'Hara's athleticism is unbelievable. And this team plays really, really well, man. When they get the running game going, they are tough to beat. The one question I do have for Sac State, though, is if the run game is slowed down, do you trust Jake Dunaway to win the game? And that's a big question mark. 174 and a pick through the air this weekend against UC Davis. And then on top of that, can you stop Marshall Martin too? That's another big thing with Sac State, man. Outside of him, who's going to emerge at the wide receiver spot? Marte Mapu has been playing amazing year at linebacker for them. 7 tackles, 2 for loss this weekend for the Hornets. Sac State finishes undefeated this year. A big FBS win too, 41-10 over Colorado State. And they get a top seed in the playoffs now. A lot of people are skeptical of Sac State moving forward. They have not had a lot of historical success in the playoffs, but do not sleep on the Hornets, man. This team looks primed to make a run. And this is the craziest stat, Steve. I'm glad you posted this. They are now 18-0 in the last two or three seasons in Big Sky play. They have won 18 straight conference games. Sac State is on another level, man. And Lawrence says he does trust Dunaway. And if Dunaway can pick up the slack when the running attack fails, when they go up against a South Dakota State or someone, Sac State's going to be a really, really tough team to beat, Lawrence. And Samford Mercer. Now, if y'all didn't see this game went to overtime. This was an amazing game to watch. Now, Mercer's quarterback, Fred Payton, he lost. I get it. 514 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did his best job to try to put Mercer in the playoffs. Mercer probably needed this game to get in. They didn't win. They got left out. But I want to give a shout out to Todd James, who reset the record book this weekend. 13 catches for 351 yards and 2 touchdowns this weekend for Todd James. He went absolutely berserk for the Mercer Bears this weekend, and it's a shame that we don't get to see this team in the playoffs. I thought they were one of the ones that were on the bubble and should have got strong consideration. But when you talk about, and listen, guys, I want everyone in the chat to star this comment, save it on your phone, screenshot it. Sean put it out there. There was a lot of bubble teams, and that's going to be real important when it comes to playoff talk, and we're going to get to that. But Michael Hires, one of his family members reached out and said it's Hires, not higher. But anyway, 454, 4 touchdowns, and has reset the record book again. In the regular season, another FCS record goes down. Michael Hires resets the completion percentage number, all-time record. Man, he completed like 78% of his passes this year. It just blows my mind. His first year out of Northwest Mississippi Community College, he comes out and resets the NCAA record book for completion percentage. And he threw the ball 428 times too. So it's not like he went throwing the ball. He threw for 3,200 yards, 35 touchdowns, and only 3 picks as well. Michael Hires is going to be a star at Samford going into next season. And just like Lindsey Scott, I think he's going to give the Bulldogs a chance to make some waves in the playoffs. They get a seed. They'll host the winner of the Idaho Southeastern Louisiana game that's probably the game I'm going to go to this weekend, but they'll host the winner of Idaho Southeastern Louisiana. But Samford, they just had too much offense, man, and they made the plays in overtime that were needed to win the game. And that's something that Samford hasn't had in a long time. If you ask anybody in the chat, the one thing you say about Samford is they've always had explosive offenses. They've never had the defense that can make the play to win the game. And that's something that they did this weekend, man. They made the one stop they needed to win this football game, because they can put up points on just about anybody. But man, William & Mary Richmond, William & Mary gets the CAA championship this weekend, gets the auto bid into the playoffs, and it was the rushing attack again. The narrative around the FCS is, if you can't run the football, it's going to be hard to win in the playoffs, man, if you can't run the football, because there's not a lot of great rushing defenses in the FCS. If you can run the football, control the time of possession, take the other team's offense off the field, it's really, really, that is the key to winning. But Bronson Yoder, Malachi Amoa did their thing again. 244, 4 touchdowns for William & Mary on the ground this weekend. And they slowed down Richmond's rushing attack down to 2.2 yards per carry and sacked Reese Udinski 5 times this weekend. And I took him off my Buck Buchanan watch list last week, and he made me pay this week. John Pius, 10 tackles, 2 for loss, a sack, multiple quarterback hurries. He played in the backfield. Nate Lynn, freshman All-American from last year, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss this weekend as well for the Tribe defense. The key for success for William & Mary moving forward into the playoffs is the front seven has to play up to their standard, which is multiple sacks, getting pressure on the quarterback, and slowing down the rushing attack, and they have to run the football. I still haven't seen Darius Wilson go out and win a game. He only threw for 13 times this game. He still put up 227 and a touchdown. But if they run the football, that is going to be a bad matchup for anyone who does not have a strong front seven, and on top of that has a defense that can slow down a 3, 4, 5, sometimes 5-headed monster at the running back spot. But the 2 guys, Bronson Yoder, Malachi Amoa, are next level running backs, man. But HBCU recap, and the story of this weekend was, one, nobody wants to win the West. PV had one job. PV had a single job, and that was to just go into Valley. It didn't have to be pretty. It didn't have to be a blowout. You just had to get the W. And you go into Valley 7-0 at halftime. You're shutting Valley out, and you give up 27 unanswered points in the second half to lose the SWAC West potentially, because if Grambling beats Southern, they still go. But man, the second half offensive explosion for Valley, I cannot wait for tomorrow. I should be able to attend the coach's call this week. The second half explosion was something I don't understand how Valley pulled that off. And they did it without Caleb Johnson. They did it without technically their starting quarterback. I don't understand this at all, how PV allowed Valley to take their chances away. They outgained Valley in everything. It was just consistently they shot themselves in the foot. And you got to give Valley credit. You do. They every time I count them out, they prove me wrong. But Valley dominated the time of possession this weekend. 8 for 17 on third down. They held PV to 2 for 10. PV could not establish any offensive consistency in the second half. And I don't care if your defense is Jackson State, Alabama, New England Patriots, it doesn't matter. If your defense is on the field for 30, 35, 40 minutes of game time, man, they wear down, and you get tired and you make mistakes and you don't execute on a high level. And that is what happened this weekend, man. PV failed to execute when they needed to most. and they got a bad loss this weekend, man. But I'm really happy for Coach Dancy and this Valley team. And mid-season, there was a real debate on this channel, on other platforms, in the chat about whether Valley was realistically going to win a game this year. And they've knocked off two teams that it no one saw it coming, man. And A&M and with PV, the top team in the West, knock off by 20 points at home. That something's different at Itabena, man. But shout out to Valley getting the big win. In Paris, I agree. Valley said we're taking everyone to hell with us. We are taking everyone to the cellar now. But FAMU, big win, 41-20, man. I tried to tell y'all on the roundtable, I did not see this game being particularly close. I did not trust Bethune-Cookman to keep this game. I didn't think it was going to be a close game. I think I bet, I don't remember. Maybe y'all can tell me in the chat. I bet Scotty that this game was going to get out of hand. And at first, I thought I was going to lose my money because it was 27-20 in the fourth quarter, and then FAMU pulled away at the end, and it made me look really good. But FAMU's rushing attack again. I'm going to say this, and Mr. Campbell, Steve, whoever, I'll make sure to open up the call lines real quick. The inability to run the football for FAMU is something that I just do not understand why FAMU cannot run the football. Even against bad rushing defenses like Bethune, FAMU ran for 30 total yards and 1.3 yards per carry. They did get 3 touchdowns on the ground, but it came in the red zone. No explosive plays. Their longest run of the day was 8 yards. 8 yards. It's just, it blows my mind. You got Terrell Jennings. You got A.J. Davis. You got Jalen McLeod. You have athletes, but there is no explosiveness. There is no execution in terms of running the football, and it makes 0 sense to
You are
me
the only
what
participant
happened to
in the
this FAMU rushing
conference.
attack. I love Bishop Bonnet. He was great. But you're telling me you don't have a running back that could bring 75% of what he brought to the offense? Their leading rusher had 26 yards on 12 carries this weekend. That was Jalen McLeod. There were, as much as FAMU was 9-2, and like I say at the end of the day, it don't matter how you win, it's getting the W. Man, there is no reason FAMU should be this bad running the football. I thought Musa played great this weekend, 15 of 19, 195, 2 touchdowns. And this is one of the times you could say, man, Musa was the guy for FAMU. Xavier Smith, 73 yards and a touchdown. And also, they got David Manigo involved in the offense, which is something that everyone's been calling for. Everyone's been saying, man, let's get a guy with some length, a guy that with some size involved in the passing attack. And this weekend they did that against Bethune-Cookman, man. But it was a big win for FAMU, another Florida Classic win for Willie Simmons and the Rattlers. But there's still some things that it just blew my mind that they couldn't run the football against Bethune-Cookman. And my guy B said the O-line is a C- this year. We also have a freshman at center, could be a big reason for it. Also lost a few linemen for the season against USC. I know Ruiz, Ruiz got hurt week 1? I think he was the transfer from is it USF, if I'm not mistaken. I know he was the tackle that got hurt. But we'll see what happens with Bethune-Cookman. I know Mr. Ford will probably call in later on the show and say that they should fire Terry Sims. I'm torn on it. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I still think Sims is going to get one more year, and I don't know if I'm really on the bandwagon of just letting him go, because the question I always have is if you fire somebody, you've got to have a replacement in mind that's going to be immediately better, or at least better in the next 2-3 years. With everything he dealt with off the field, do you think they should fire him after all that, or would that be a bad, I would say, PR look or anything like that? I'm torn on it, but I personally think Bethune gives Terry one more year, but I could be wrong. They could make a move now that the season's over within the next week or two. So we got Terry Sims needs to be fired, keep him one more year. Terry's got to go, but they're not going to get rid of him. I'm kind of on that side, but let's see. Regardless, they need a QB. Bethune-Cookman's in Florida. You can find a good coach. Sills is battling a lot, and no one really wants that job right now. That's with all the hurricanes and being displaced for so long and having to try to build chemistry and get players ready. I just, and I know on the press conference or whatever he's going to say, man, that's no excuse, but there's very few coaches who would have put up with that. I'm just saying, or excelled in those circumstances. So that's the only thing I would say. Sims to stay. Maynard has to go. They're not firing Maynard. They're not firing Connell. That's not happening. But and it's because of the game we're about to talk about. A&M takes away all Texas Southern had to do yesterday was win. And they were in the SWAC championship with Jackson State in Jackson. And they absolutely collapsed down the stretch. I'm talking about of epic proportions collapsed down the stretch. They were about to waltz into the SWAC championship. They were about to just walk right in. It was not even going to be close. It was 20-3 in the fourth quarter, and they allowed 21 unanswered points. 20-3, and they allowed 21 unanswered points. I'm sorry. That is outrageous that they collapse like this with everything that happened on the line. And I had someone in the program who he reached out to me on Twitter and said that he thinks that they heard what happened to PV and the players lost focus. I don't know how true that is. I wasn't there, but that's what someone who was there on the sideline in the program said to me, is that on the sideline it went around that as long as they closed it out, they were in, and everyone just kind of lost focus. And I don't. It's just, you cannot lose a game like that, man. A&M found a little bit of a passing attack, man. Xavier Langford probably had his most efficient game of the season. 113, a touchdown, was 6 for 8. Quincy Casey was terrible at the quarterback spot this weekend, but A&M also ran the football really well. It is a storyline around Texas Southern that they have consistently, outside of Grambling, could not stop the run this year. Donovan England, 120. Xavier Langford, 76 for 2 touchdowns. They rushed for 258, 2 touchdowns this weekend, almost 6 yards per carry. And Texas Southern was not able to get a single stop in the fourth quarter and change anything. And Body went crazy on the ground, 149 on the ground for Andrew Body, but they could not stop the front seven of A&M either. A&M's front 7, 8. I think they had 4 sacks this weekend. Dre Terry, Zarion Hayes, even Trey Middleton, they all consistently made plays in the front 7 for Alabama A&M when it counted. And you got to give Connell Maynard credit, man. He turned something in that fourth quarter, turned it completely around, and they made Texas Southern pay for every mistake. But if you're Texas Southern and you're Clarence McKinley, and I can't wait to hear what he has to say in the SWAC media call tomorrow, that's a game you cannot lose. You cannot lose that game. And you can't, listen, I'm putting blames on both sides. Wayne, I'm putting blame on both sides. Body, everyone. Listen, every player on the team deserves some blame, because you can say the defense didn't stop nobody. And yes, Andrew and all the offense players don't play defense. They have to put points on the board. I don't care if you're up 20-3, Wayne. If your defense gives up a touchdown, it's your job to put the ball in the end zone to get that lead back up to where it was. I don't think the offense does not just. I don't think the offense is excused. The whole team's to blame. You could say the defense shouldn't have gave up touchdowns. Well, damn, the offense should have been putting points on the board or putting up consistent drives to run down the clock. You're up by 3 scores. If you're up by 3 scores in the fourth quarter, I'm sorry. The whole team is to blame, because the offense should have been more consistent, moving the football down the field, and therefore, I think the whole team is to blame. No fumble at the back of the end zone and TSU wins. I agree, but a big mistake, a huge mistake right there. Mistakes like that separate championship teams, which is funny because that was a chance to go to the championship, and teams that don't make it, man. And I blame both sides of the ball on this one, but it was an epic collapse. I'm interested to see what Clarence McKinley says about it tomorrow afternoon. But I got to give a round of applause to Howard, man. I kind of doubted them coming into this one, and man, Howard absolutely put it on Morgan State, 35-6. Quentin Williams looked like when Howard is the scariest team in the MEAC when Quentin Williams is playing at a high level. 17 for 24, 2 touchdowns, and also did his thing on the ground with a rushing touchdown. Quentin Williams led Howard's offense like he was supposed to, and then Morgan State has a horrible quarterback issue. The number one thing for Damon Wilson, I think he's got playmakers at all promising young players at all the other spots. The quarterback position is terrible. 8 for 25 for 67 yards is not going to get it done. They gave up 4 big sacks. Howard won the line of scrimmage battle on both sides of the football, and their quarterback played more consistently. That was the difference at the end of the day. And you've got to give Howard some credit, man. They're the co-MEAC champions. And real quick, I want to get y'all's opinion on this before we get to our games of the week. I understand they didn't have a conference championship game. I get that. But can you explain to me? I know it's been like this forever, and there's going to be some people that are going to be like, it's been like this way for years. But I just want to ask a question. Do you guys agree that teams like Howard, Incarnate Word, and other teams can claim to be co-champions if they finish with the same conference record, even though they lost the head-to-head matchup? I want to ask all that because I put in my preview article, that Incarnate Word couldn't repeat as Southland champs, but they got co-champs by winning, even though they lost the head-to-head to Southeastern Louisiana. And Howard is also the co-MEAC champions because even though they lost the head-to-head to North Carolina Central. I don't think that should work like that. Like, I get it. It's an impressive feat. You finished with 1 loss in the conference. But if you lost the head-to-head to the team that you tied with, I don't understand how that doesn't cancel out and say, like, okay, yeah, like, you can't be a co-champ to next to the team that beat you. And yeah, I mean, Mr. Carey, it would. No, it absolutely would. Because if the SWAC championship didn't exist and Jackson State, let's say, dropped a game, Jackson State and FAMU would be co-champs. Like, that's what happens. And no, it's not just the MEAC, D. The Southland did it too. Incarnate Word and Southeastern Louisiana are co-champions, and Southeastern Louisiana beat Incarnate Word. And it happens all the time. Like, it can happen in the CAA as well. I mean, it can happen in any conference that does not have a true conference championship game. To me, that doesn't make any sense. Like, if you're not going to have a championship game, the team that won the head-to-head matchup to take it. Now, if there's a 3-way tie, then, like, I kind of get it, because depending on how it all played out. But if it's just 2 teams tied and and team A beat team B, it would make sense to me that the team that won that matchup would be the champion. But I wanted to get on that before I moved on, because I went back and forth with some people about it. It makes 0 sense to me. Get rid of all co-champ possibilities. Only one winner. If they beat you on the field, they are champs. That's what I'm saying. That's how I feel. As a player, that's how I would feel. I get it. Listen, you want a ring, you want the celebration, all that kind of stuff. But if you, this is more important to me. Like, if you lost on the field, you can't be champion with the team that beat you. I'm sorry. It just I can't get behind that, man. But listen, I got a bunch of callers on the line real quick, but let me get to these and then we'll get into our games of the week. 7485, you're live.
Yeah, Blue. What's up, man? This is Margo from Jackson.
What's good, man?
And, nothing much, man. I'm always off topic. Man, what you think about the Tennessee and South Carolina game?
I think that Tennessee defense finally bit them in the ass, to be honest with you. And then also, when you lose your starting quarterback mid-game, it's always tough to bounce back. But man, they just got a thorough beating. I mean, when you give up 63 to a team, I can't help you there. I just think South Carolina came out there and beat them to death this weekend, and it ruins Tennessee's playoff hopes.
It definitely does. And I got one more. Now I didn't see the bracket, so I want to ask you this before I ask you that. Did Austin P get inside the playoffs?
No, Austin P missed it. They were the first team out, I think.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, I was gonna say because I want to know how you feel about somebody who's trying to get in, coming turning around and playing somebody like Alabama at the end of the season when you can sustain various type of injuries, things of that nature. And I just didn't feel like that was wise of them to even do that, even if they just really had a chance to get in. But that's all I had, Blue. Appreciate it, bro.
Appreciate you, man.
I,
99656. You're live.
Hey, how are you?
How you
Hey,
doing?
I want to know if Dabo has a chance. I just would love to see. I think he would be a perfect fit for Auburn. Clemson's very similar to Auburn.
Oh,
What do y'all think?
This is a different show. The Auburn show's already ended.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
All right, bye.
Yeah. I was wondering. I don't know about y'all. I was like, Dabo for what? Like the fam job if someone leaves?
Hey, how are you?
5950. You're live.
What's going on, Blue? It's Steve from Miami, man. How you doing? Rattlers Nation, stand up.
What's good, Steve?
Good. Just to answer your question, man, Bishop Bonner was very missed. Keenan Forbes was missed. The whole line was a mess. Hopefully, these guys can get healthy during the spring. But my question is to you. Is this Willie Simmons' last year? Because he's been the last 3 years 9-2, 9-3. And what do you think on that? He never had a losing season at FAMU.
Listen, man. I think Willie is going to be at FAMU until he doesn't want to. I mean, there's no way, right?
Okay. And also the playoffs, there was a lot of 7-4 teams like Delaware, Montana. I thought they would be like the first 4 out. And we probably could have sneaked in, but that the Division II win that we had kind of hurt us. So, we only had 8 Division I games to win, but it's all right. We had a great season. I'll let you speak about that, Blue. You take care. Thanks for taking my call, man.
Hey, appreciate you, man. I'm gonna answer that at the end of the show. Listen, we're still gonna get the playoff talk. I just wanted to recap what happened this week. But listen, we're gonna break down the whole FAMU drama. Do not worry. We are breaking down the FAMU drama today. 6242, you're live.
Shoot, what's up, Blue? This Bridges.
What's good, man?
What's good? Shoot, I know you probably gonna talk about it later for us. Like, can you get in? I don't know if you already talked about it earlier, but man, it got bite us in the butt, man. As far as scheduling of the Division II team, and that North Carolina game did look good on our record, but just we supposed to put a point. The points, that's what if we got a schedule like that, we gotta put up 40 points almost every game. Like the 28 and the 20s and the 30s, that's not gonna help us if we're scheduling these games. We gotta get out that D2 scheduling, find a team that's in the FCS that's a 400-mile range, and we can still play our like D1 schools if we want to for the money game. And, try to at least schedule 2 good FCS teams. If we can do that and put points up on the board, then at the end of the day, they have to look at points over the schedule at some point in time. Like, then they would say, they running the scale. They putting up 40 almost every game, and their defense is playing lights out. So it's just we bet ourselves in the butt with scheduling and not putting enough points.
I mean, okay. I was going to talk about this a little bit later, but we could talk a little bit about it now. What people are confusing is FBS games aren't like FBS games unless you're a North Dakota State and you're the favorite. Like playing a Alabama versus somebody going to play who do you want to put in there? A Utah or a Colorado State or whoever. Like it doesn't help you to go play Alabama and get beat because you're not expected to win. And the other, like your FCS schools, FBS wins are looked at as like bonuses on their resume. But if you lose to an FCS school, it's just kind of wiped away. Like no one cares. Like, listen, we didn't expect you to win. Thank you for going to, we understand you need money games, but people are acting like FAMU playing UNC is like the end all be all. Like at the end of the day, like I don't see why that would help your resume. Like it was week 0. They had a new quarterback, all kind of distractions and everything. Like how do you honestly judge FBS games across people's resume when half the time teams aren't even playing starters in those games? Or it's week 1 or week 2. Like right now, if FAMU and UNC played, do you really think it would be a close game?
Oh, nah, I would. Nah.
Hey, that's what I'm saying. And then also people like to play like 17 degrees of separation. And it's aggravating because the transitive property, I say it, man, it should be the name of the show. Transitive property does not apply in college football. People will be like, Team A beat Team B, but Team B beat Team D, and Team C beat Team F, and therefore F would beat A. And it's like college football doesn't work like that at all. Like there's a page on Twitter. I'll have to find it and promote it on the channel. They do a thing at the end of every year with the transitive property where they prove that the worst team in FBS can beat the national champion every year because you can do it using the transitive property because it doesn't apply. And I think people who are emotional after a big decision, and listen, if I'm a FAMU fan, I'm upset. And me personally, I would love to see FAMU go in. I've already had it set up where I was going to be in Bragg this year or this weekend if they made it in. But man, sometimes people really just got to sit back and look at the analytics and be like, okay, well, if we're not in, who do I take out and why? And that's always the question I'll throw to people.
And you ain't got to answer this now. You can answer it at the end of the score. How would you look at changing the playoff system? And I'm gonna leave it like that.
The first thing I would do is get rid of auto bids for some conferences. In my opinion, no offense, I really hate this. I really, really hate saying this. The Pioneer, like non-scholarship leagues, do not deserve auto bids to the playoffs. It's literally just an auto bid. It's like, I'm trying to think of like a nice comparison, but I mean, they're pretty much going into the playoffs to get beat to sleep. And it happens every single year. And I might be blanking. I'm sure Lawrence or someone in the chat can tell me. Can someone name the last Pioneer team that won a game? And hang on. No, they did not. Leon, you're thinking the Patriot. Pioneer got one team in, and that was Davidson. The Patriot was Holy Cross and Fordham, and they both deserved it. And you're not. And you don't. I promise, FAMU. If FAMU tries to argue against Fordham, y'all losing that debate a million times over.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I think if you're going to keep auto bids, I hate it. But you're going to have to expand. But here's what I'll say to that. Here's the flip side. I'll play my devil's advocate with myself is if you expand it, there's always going to be a bubble and there's always going to be someone left out. And at the end of the day, if you expand it, the people who are going to be left out are still going to argue it should be expanded so they should get in. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But there's a lot of changes, man. Financial is the biggest thing. Like you got to find a way to make some sort of profit, and there's ways to do it. But it's just, I don't know, man. There's just too much. But no, I think if you're a non-scholarship league, I'm sorry, man, you don't deserve to get in. Like, you can't convince me that Davidson would beat any of the 4 teams on the bubble. And if I'm not mistaken, hang on, I got it on a slide here. Let me see. The last 4 in was Chattanooga, or last 4 out, my bad. Chattanooga, Austin P, Rhode Island, and FAMU. There is zero chance, I'm talking about zero chance, that Davidson beats any 4 of those teams.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy, bro. That's crazy. That's something to think about, though. But thank you, man.
Hey, appreciate you calling in, man.
All right, peace.
Eight 945. You're live.
What's going on, Blue, man? This is Doc.
What's good, Doc?
Hey, man. I watched a little bit of that Sac State game, man, and I'm gonna be honest with you. You was right about that running attack. It's a potent running attack, man, and I don't think a lot of teams will be able to stop that stop that running attack, especially coming into the playoffs. Another thing I was saying, I would say is, like you said, Prairie View and Texas Southern dropped the ball. All you had to do, you found out if Texas Southern really dropped the ball, because all you had to do, you found out Prairie View lost. All you had to do is just win the game. You hold on to it and win the game. But I also heard that Andrew went out with a shoulder separation, so he didn't finish. I know he didn't finish the game yesterday, but that's not. But that's not either. You know what I'm saying? It still don't make a difference for the fact that you lost the game. Texas Southern always had a problem this year alone. When they get big leads, they either A, they can't hold on to it, or B, they can't capitalize on having, you know what I'm saying, such a big lead and putting more onto the lead. And then Prairie View, like, yeah, you said Prairie View laid the goose egg at Valley. But it is funny because Valley always had their number. They had their number the last year. As far as Black Monday coming up, see what coach is going to get fired. As far as for Bethune-Cookman, I wouldn't fire Terry Sales. Like, in my opinion, they was road warriors the whole year. Like, I don't think they was in Florida for probably like 2 or 3 games at the most, and one of them I don't even think they was even at their home stadium for any one of their home games. So I wouldn't fire Terry Sims. I wouldn't fire him. I would let him coach one more time. But Clarence McKinney, yeah, you got to go, brother. Like, you had a chance to get your team above 500, have a winning season for the first time since 2010, and go and be the representative for the Western Division in the Celebration Bowl. But you dropped the ball, so I feel like he got to go. And
that's fair.
Last but not least, man, the A&T game, man, I watched majority of that game yesterday. It looked like after Gardner Webb went up on them by 10 or 14, it seemed like they just didn't want they didn't want the game anymore. Like, they lost all hope after that. But man, it's a good show. I got one more question. I know we were talking about this in the chat on Messenger, but what other team would you have replaced in the playoffs than the to replace that 5th Colonial team? And that's it, man.
Hey, appreciate you, Doc. I think so. For me, the 2 teams that are the most questionable in the FCS playoffs, and man, I already said this on Scotty's show. I've already said on the show, I would not include Montana in the playoffs. Like I've already said this. But when you look, the only thing I'm responding to is what the playoff committee is going to say they looked at. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the show is like this is what the playoff committee said, looked at, etc. Delaware and Montana, when I did my final bracketology after the Jackson State game, I did not have Delaware and Montana in my playoffs. I don't think either of those teams deserved it, especially after Delaware just lost to Villanova. Like that is a terrible loss. I agree. But at the end of the day, when you're just comparing resumes and what the playoff committee looks at to put teams in, it's hard to argue that even if they weren't included, that FAMU is going to get in over Chattanooga or Rhode Island or Austin P or whoever. I mean, because I even think there's some other teams that weren't even in that first four out that I thought had a pretty good argument. But that's all I want to say. And also, Rocky, I think someone answered this in the chat. Davidson might have finished second in their conference, but St. Thomas just moved from D3 last year, and due to the NCAA's rules about postseason play, St. Thomas is not allowed to play in the postseason, which means Davidson, who finished second, will get the auto bid due to the fact they weren't eligible for postseason play. And Chad, I know this pisses people off all the time, but as mad as people can get about it, and I've said this on the show before, when you're talking about playoff spots, rankings, anything like that, a win over a bad team counts more. I mean, it counts less than a loss against a good team. So a loss to a top 10 team is better than beating a bad team in conference. It is at the end of the day. And I know people hate that, but that is true. Mr. Ford, you're live.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Let's see. Hey, can you hear me, Blue?
Loud and clear, Mr. Ford.
Okay. Listen, first, I want to congratulate Jackson State and all of those HBCU conference champions, North Carolina Central, Benedict College. I think Fayetteville State might have won the CIAA. I want to say congratulations to all of them. And you're absolutely right. I do believe that Terry Sims needs to move on. Actually, I thought he should have been released last year. He can't do anything else for that program. That program is on the ground, and they've got to have a change at the head coaching position to bring that program back. And so now if they want to stay on the ground and stay a losing program, then keep Terry Sims. If you want to make a change, then he's got to go. The other thing I want to say is, with this being the end of the season, the biggest problem we got in HBCU football is these non-committed presidents. Now, in the SWAC, you look at people like Dr. Williams and Dr. Ross down at Alabama State and Alabama A&M. Those people are committed. The president at Jackson State, committed. The president at Grambling, committed. But then everybody else is a question mark, okay? And so what I'm saying is we need these darn presidents and these commissioners to get off their behind, okay? It's obvious the NCAA does not respect the SWAC or the MEAC. They don't want our teams in their playoffs. So what's stopping the presidents of these HBCUs and these commissioners of these HBCU conferences in coming up with an HBCU playoff? Nothing. They're just too sorry to get off their behind, okay? And so that's what I've seen this season, is that success starts at the top. And we have too many people in these college administration departments and these conference offices who are not doing anything. Now, Blue, did you have any questions for me?
No questions for me, man. Tonight's all about FAMU and everyone being upset about that.
Well, now let me say this about FAMU. FAMU has to get a more dominant athlete in the interior. I think I told you this before. Colvin at the right tackle was all right with me. Goss at the left tackle was all right with me. I had a problem with that freshman at center. I thought he was in the way. I thought he should have been redshirted. I thought that the offensive line improved when they benched him and brought in the Lee kid. But you have to understand, if you're going to be a rushing team, your two guards and center got to be dominant. And that's what they don't have. Like I think I said this to Mr. Campbell on another show. When you look at FAMU's defensive line, they were okay, but those are not pro prospects. And that's what they got to go. They have to upgrade their recruiting. They got to go get that defensive lineman that's 6'4", 6'5", 260, 270, 280, but can run. Okay? FAMU needs them kids like, what's that kid? Remember that kid last year from the University of Tennessee, Savion Williams? Remember him?
Yeah.
That has to be the norm. Okay? The kid that was drafted last year and went, I don't know if he was drafted. I think he was free agent. Was it Keenum? Was it Fobbs? What was his name? Keenum Fobbs?
Yeah, Keenum Fobbs.
That's
Forbes.
the kind of
Keenan
kid,
Forbes.
that kind of size. That's the kind of prototype they need. To me, a lot of the kids, they play well, but they're Division II kids. Okay? And you know, a lot of people try to criticize Dion and all that, but Dion going out and getting dominant players. He getting out, like I told you before, I love that kid he got from Florida International that's wearing number 31. Okay? He brought in them two kids, number 42, and one was wearing number 32. I like them kids. And that's what Coach Simmons got to do. They got to upgrade the kind of kids. You got to get a prototype. Okay? Now, let me just say this, and I know everybody's going to say, well, he gone, and what we talking about that for? Listen, the guy who was the offensive line coach at Florida A&M last year, I followed him for years. His name is Ryan Stachek. I think isn't that right, Blue? He went up to Austin P.
Yeah, I think so.
You know what? Listen, see, I've been following him since he was the offensive line coach for Jay Hobson at Alcorn. He was really good offensive line man. Okay? They have not replaced him. Now, they brought the guy, I think his name is Joseph Roberts. He's doing okay because the offensive line did increase. But to answer your question, the reason FAMU was having so many problems running that football, they are not dominant at the two guard positions and at the center position. You talking about that Manigault kid, I've told you over and over, they misusing him. He should be a wing tight end. He is not fast enough to be out there on the numbers. If you're going to be on the numbers, you need to have the speed. He's a wing tight. He should be played up and down the field in the seams in the middle of the field. Okay? And I'm going to say this, Blue, before I go. I am hoping and praying, because I really believe the SWAC championship is going to come down to Jackson State and Southern. I am hoping that Southern does not play that kid that they played in the first Jackson State Southern game. I know that Glendon McDaniels would do a better job, and I know that kid number 4, I think his last name is Bluebloods, would do a better job. Now I can see them bringing him in situationally, maybe to run the Wildcat, but I can't take another game with him as a full-time quarterback at Southern University. It makes no sense. Okay? Now, you talked about Alabama A&M and the situation with that quarterback. For some reason, that Crawford kid, I think isn't his name Crawford? He's number 16. Is that his name? What's that kid's name? That's the quarterback that was
Lankford.
Was the MVP of the game yesterday.
Lankford
does better when he comes off the bench. I thought that at the end of the game, he was the MVP. I really did. I thought he was the MVP. I thought he's smart. Now, I know that I'm listening to what you said about Texas Southern. Texas Southern is still a very, very young team. They'll be better next year. I'm just hoping that Coach McKinnell will go out and get those Power 5 transfers that can help him in that front 7 on defense and can get some more quality offensive line. That program is coming. It's going to be slow, but it's coming. I'm just hoping they give him enough time because I do like what I've seen from Texas Southern this year. But I think that I don't know if he's going to place the emphasis once again on getting high school kids. Personally, I think he needs to get kids who can come in and play automatically. And the main thing he needs is kids in his front 7. He needs defensive linemen and he needs linebackers. Okay? Blue, did you have anything?
No, that's it, Mr. Ford. I appreciate you calling in.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, have a good night.
You too. Chad, before I get to this last caller so we can get to the games of the week and everything, I'm going to hold all calls after this one until the end of the show. But I agree. Listen, that's why I'm with you on this. But here's what the committee will say. Montana got throttled, like you said, 51-21 by Montana State. Montana State's a higher ranked team than Jackson. And a lower ranked team in Jackson beat FAMU 59-3. So I get it. I think FAMU, I agree. Montana shouldn't be in, but don't use that as the marker because then all they're going to say is FAMU got beat 59-3 by a team that's worse than Montana State. And it was in a neutral site, but it was in Florida at home while they had to travel to Bozeman to play that game.
FAMU got beat 59-3 by a team
6-2, 3-3. You're live.
Hey, what's up, Blue? This is Rock, man.
What's good, man?
Hey, this is basically what I'm saying, Blue, is that it's just I watched NCAA basketball for years, and I remember there were times when the ACC got 6 and 7 teams when they expanded to 16 teams in their conference, and they got 6 or 7 teams in the tournament by virtue of the fact is that it was viewed by the selection committee that the ACC was just a deeper, better conference than most of the conferences around the country. And I just think that is the perception of the Big Sky as well. I mean, the Big Sky as well, is that there are deeper conferences and there are teams that probably may finish 3rd or 4th or maybe even 5th that could win some of the well, not the Big Sky. I'm talking about the Missouri Valley Conference.
Missouri Valley only got 3 teams in. It's the CAA and Big Sky both got 5. And I will say this: the perception is reality. The 5 Big Sky teams that got in would win probably. I would say they would have a great shot at winning the ASUN, the WAC, the Big South easily, the Patriot, the Pioneer, the SWAC, the MEAC. I mean, that's 7 conferences right there.
Okay, and again, that's how the ACC was viewed back in the day in the basketball committee. When they were, when Duke and North Carolina went at the pinnacle, they would still take teams like Maryland and Virginia Tech and Virginia and teams that were almost like 500 teams and put them in the tournament because it was viewed that conference was just much tougher. And I think I don't know as much about FCS football, of course, as you do, but it seems like that's the situation they went with. They went with the more established conferences, and they gave those teams the benefit of the doubt in the selection process, Blue. Hey, man, but thank you for everything you do, bro, and I'll keep listening.
Appreciate you, man. I'm not even going to get into this. That's not true, but okay. We'll leave it at that. But listen, when we're going to get to the 2 games of the week, and then I'll have all the playoff talk y'all want to do for the rest of the night, man. But Montana State blitzes Montana, man. Great game day setting, man. They probably had the best backdrop in the history of game day, man. The mountains with the snow caps, everything, man. It was beautiful out there. It was cold as hell, I heard, but beautiful setting, man. And it came down. Listen, I've told y'all, the best rushing attack in the country, not FCS, not FBS, it doesn't matter. The best rushing attack in the country resides in Bowman, Montana. They can run the football on anyone in the country, man, especially at the FCS level, man. There's no one in the FCS that would hold them under 250. 439 rushing yards, 7 yards per carry, 5 rushing touchdowns this weekend, and still done without the All-American running back Isaiah Fonzie and their second string running back who's still out with injury. Tommy Millott, 141, 2 touchdowns. Elijah Elliott, 126. The backup quarterback, Sean Chambers, 86 yards. Marquis Johnson, a wide receiver, playing running back due to depth, 74 and a touchdown, averaging 12 yards per carry as a wide receiver playing running back. They move the football so efficiently on the ground, man. I mean, Montana State is next level running the football. And if I'm not mistaken, they finished the season number 1 in the country in rushing this year. And it really wasn't even close. The way they have so many weapons, even with players injured, it's just unbelievable to say, man. They averaged 300. Let's see. No, okay, they haven't updated it yet. But going into this game, they were averaging 314, and they had injuries at the running back spot. And the front seven played outstanding against this Montana rushing attack, which they had to establish to counteract what Montana State was doing on the ground. Less than 3 yards per carry. They got 1 late touchdown on the ground, and Lucas Johnson did not have a great game. 137, a touchdown, a pick. They brought Daniel Britton, who played a little bit better. But at the end of the day, man, when you allow a team to rush for almost 500 yards on you, there's nothing you can do. They held the ball for 40 minutes of possession time this weekend, 6 and 11 on third down, 2 of 2 on fourth. I mean, there was nothing Montana could do. The defense was completely overwhelmed, and it's just due to the amount of weapons that Montana State has. And there has not been a team in the country right now that can slow down this Montana State attack. Finished with 1 loss this season. Their 1 loss was a Power 5 loss to Oregon State early in the season. And right now, there's a good argument to say Montana State's probably one of the hottest teams in the country right now. Going into the playoffs, I would expect the Bobcats to be one of the favorites to take home the title. And right now, like I said last week, if I was putting money down on a team right now, Montana State would be my pick to probably take home the trophy in Frisco if I had to put money on November 20th. This team is special right now on the offensive side of the football. They play amazing football at the line of scrimmage on both the defense and offensive line. Montana State is legit, and I'm really excited to see what they can do this year after losing the national championship last year in Frisco after they lost their starting quarterback before the playoffs. They take freshman Tommy Millott, takes him to the dance. He gets hurt, so they're playing a third string in the national championship. If they can stay healthy down the stretch, Isaiah Fonzie and a first-team All-American running back is expected to come back in the playoffs, fresh with no carries on his body. This team could be terrifying, man. But the Grizz take a big loss, 55-21 this weekend, and Jackson State, Alcorn State. So listen. The picture you see is mine, man. I had a blast. Listen, pictures coming up from this game probably sometime tomorrow. I still got to go through and edit a bunch of them, or early Tuesday. The highlights are already out on the channel. I'm sure a lot of y'all already saw that. First off, just experience at the Soul Bowl, man. Like because I know a lot more of y'all are in here. I think we had only a few people at the beginning when I talked about it. By far, the best experience I've had at a game in a long time. I mean, easily since I started going to work these games on the sideline. If you weren't there, I don't care what video you've seen. I don't care what person you've heard describe it. The energy in the stadium was just different. Oh my gosh. It was insane, man. I had a blast, man. Shout out to Mr. Kincaid again. Amazing tailgate spot, man. The A team does it big. They had like a whole restaurant set out in the tailgate area with tables and everything. But man, shout out to Alcorn and Jackson. The crowd was involved. The energy was there. I mean, they rolled in extra bleachers for this game too, put boxes up in the end zone, up in the corner for people. It was it was an amazing atmosphere, and the fact that it was a close game also helped. I told you guys, I didn't pick Alcorn to win. I thought Jackson was going to win this game. All I wanted was a close game because I wanted to see the atmosphere of what it could be. Man, they absolutely delivered, man, and both bands were great. That was the best game of the season, man. So shout out to everyone I got to talk to there. I got to meet Ken Clark, Zoe. It was amazing. I can't wait to see a Soul Bowl in Jackson. I still haven't been to a game in Jackson yet, but I think I might have to wait until the Soul Bowl next year to go see that one. But the Travis Hunter game, I guess everyone's kind of deeming it, and I want to approach this a little bit differently because I think the biggest thing that surprised me about Travis, and this is what was most impressive for me, and it's something that, man, no one's really talked about for some reason. The most impressive thing about Travis Hunter's performance this weekend is he gave up some big plays before he made his plays to take over the game. Like, you could say what you want. 14 Ontario Hunt put up 100 yards on Travis. 100 yards on Travis. And they had a great strategy to attack him. And with most freshmen, if they were giving up plays like that, they would get in their own head and not really be in the game, making plays, and you know, it would be an issue for most freshmen. But for him to give up almost 100 yards receiving, and okay, the advanced analytics that he get, I think it was like almost 100 yards on the day. He gave up almost 100 yards. Y'all can look it up. He did. He gave up. It might not have been over. He gave up just about 100 yards. I even had a coach from the team call me. I don't care. And listen, I don't care regardless if it's 80 or 100, he gave up multiple plays, multiple catches. And the fact that he was able to bounce back from that and make the plays he did was elite for a freshman. His understanding of the game, his composure, and his ability to stay mentally locked in, even though things weren't going his way early, you got to love it. And at the same time, you got to give Alcorn's OC or coaching staff a little bit of credit, where they knew he was going to play that trail technique. They were going to play man on man, and they knew they weren't going to have a lot of time to throw the ball. So they said, if we're going to play trail technique, we're going to throw it up. We're going to put it where only my wide receiver can catch it, and we're going to just let you go make plays up over Travis. And the one play that he intercepted, it was a play they tried to run kind of like the wide receiver stopped. He kind of slipped. Travis broke on it, and as soon as he threw it, man, I knew it was going the other way out. As soon as Travis caught it, I saw the running back coming over. I was like, listen, he's going with the ball in his hand. He's the most electric player in the SWAC, no question. And that's why I do think, man, his ability at wide receiver is next level. And if anyone was there, and if anyone's been to a game in the pregame warmups, I was kind of watching him warm up. That catch in the end zone where he caught the deep ball by Shador and drug his foot, he practices that in pregame warmups. He was out there on the sideline, because y'all see some pictures in my gallery of it. He stands on the sideline and has people throw at him, and he tries one-handed catches. He makes sure his feet are in bounds. And he was prepared for that moment. And Shador threw a solid ball, and Travis is just a playmaker at the wide receiver spot. But man, you got to give him credit. That was my biggest thing, is the mental focus, the mental maturity for Travis Hunter to understand, even though he was giving up plays, that he still was able to turn that around and go make plays. And his energy is infectious for the defense too. He is freaky athletic, man. I'm telling you. And unless you see Travis play in person, it is different. He is just on a different level. But I thought Alcorn did an amazing job attacking him and making him work, because all season long, and Jackson State people back me up in the comments, teams have been afraid to throw at Travis all year long. Once he breaks up a play or two, they stop throwing to him. Alcorn said, listen, I don't care if he makes a play or two. He's a freshman. We're going to throw at him, because even after that pick six, they continued to throw at him. And you got to give him credit for not shying away and being like, listen, he is the freshman. We are going to throw at him, and we're going to throw at him with a third-string quarterback. The balls it took for them to say, listen, Trey Lawrence, this is what, your third career start? We are going to throw the ball right at the 5-star that y'all brought in that everyone else is afraid to. And Trey Lawrence executed on a pretty high level outside of that pick six in terms of just making it where it was either the wide receiver or it was an incompletion. And also, you got to give Montario Hunt and CJ Bowler their props. 8 catches for over 170 this weekend against the Jackson State secondary that up until this game did not allow 150 yards through the air all season long. And so you have to give them credit that they were able to go make some plays in double coverage and one-on-one coverage, and they went up and get the ball. They literally opened the wide receiver up to execute near the sideline. Man, it was beautiful. The wide receivers had to do their thing getting off the line, and with Jackson State playing that trail technique early, they were able to execute it. I will say this: Jackson State's front seven, I thought played good. You know, they gave up 96 yards rushing to Jarvion Howard, 1 touchdown. He really only had 1 or 2 explosive plays. The biggest concern for me with Jackson, though, even though they won, it's 11-0, it's history. The offense, this was the first game that one of the first games I could say the offensive line got beat. And I understand a lot of people are going to say a lot of the sacks were on Shedeur. I agree. I think he was sacked 5 times. Some of them were on Shedeur. But at the same time, man, in the rushing game, they got 0 push up front. 0 push up front. They got dominated in the run game. And that was one thing that I've been I've been really impressed with Jackson State this year is their offensive line has played really, really well with in terms of their run blocking, aggressiveness, and execution. They got smacked in the mouth, and you got to give the front seven for Alcorn State some credit, and they're good. Listen, front seven for Alcorn State is legit. They had a great plan, and Savion Wilkerson in that rushing attack could not get anything going. 42 yards rushing, 1.1 yards per carry. 1.1 yards per carry. And I think Prom in the post-game press conference even said that he was not impressed with the offensive execution this week. And you got to give credit in the front seven to Claudin. 12 total tackles, 3 for loss, a sack. Also, Malachi Bailey, there was a defensive end, 2.5 sacks, 2.5 tackles for loss. Man, and he was upfield. He was the one that had the first sack on Shedeur early in the game. And man, he was consistently in the backfield wreaking havoc. And the one thing I will say is I know everyone's really critical of Shedeur. I know he was quote unquote healthy, cleared to play. But man, I'm telling you guys, if you were there, Paris and some of the other people in the comments was there when he took those first 2 or 3 shots. You could tell he felt them. I'm just going to say that. You can tell it changed the way he played. Early in the game, he took off on a few scrambles. After he started taking some shots, it wasn't. You really could tell, man. If you were there, you saw him walking to the sidelines. You saw him walking around the huddle. Man, he was feeling every single one of those shots this weekend. And man, the offensive line was doing him no favors, man. They couldn't block a soul out there at times. And I know holding the ball too long was one of the issues. There were a few times where the tackle just got beat, man. Number 44 was Malachi Bailey was beating Jackson State's offensive line consistently this weekend. And that's one of the issues I'm hoping, and I'm sure Prom talked about in his post-game press conference, they got to look at. But I want to say this thing because Paris, all the people who watch the show all the time can vouch for this. I want to say, remember when I told y'all about 5 weeks ago that I thought Justin Reagan was legit, and all of y'all told me, wait till Dole comes back, wait till this person comes back, man. He ain't really going to see the field. Justin Reagan's legit. I told y'all like 5 weeks ago, I think it was before the Bethune game, I said I thought Justin Reagan behind Niles Gaddy has played the best this year out of anyone in that defensive line room, or in terms of that scheme. Because I mean, he coming off the edge, man, he can make play after play. 3.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks this weekend. Also forced that fumble that was taken back to the 2-yard line. He played out of his mind. Geronte Davis and Aubrey Miller have become a dangerous linebacking duo, and I was Jackson State's defense, man, did their thing when they needed to, and I was impressed with JSU's defense. The speed of them looks so different in person, especially up close on the field, man. They get to the football. And I think Alcorn did a good job of that in their rushing attack. They really didn't try to run sideline to sideline or east-west, man. They went north and south. They said Howard is a bull, and there was a few times where he hit the hole and were able to make plays in the second level. But, man, you unless you have a downhill running back, man, it is hard to run the football against Jackson State because you could not run east-west. That they are going to track you down consistently. But I want to know how y'all feel because y'all can call in too. This was, in my opinion, this was a solid performance by JSU's defense. Travis took over the game and made some plays, rebounded from some bad plays he had. But man, when do we say? I just gonna throw this out there. When do we say Jackson State's offense is not elite? Because I think Jackson State has an elite defense. I just think Jackson State has a pretty good offense with a lot of talent on paper. They consistently failed because, I mean, listen, they put up 59 points against FAMU, and they put up 66 against Grambling. But other than that, man, what's a game that the offense has just completely taken over? Because coming into the season, man, everyone was talking about Jackson. Jackson was just going to run up the score every game. We hear they're going to put up 50, 60, but at the end of the day, man, I just don't think the offense has been playing up to the potential that they should. Just personally. Let's see. Offense is not producing. Wide receivers has been inconsistent. It's pretty good. Definitely not elite. No, it's on paper. It's there, but it's not elite till next year. That's fair. JSU offense wins. It ain't dominant though. JSU offense mid. The play calling is predictable. It's not elite. It's not elite execution wise at all. The offense looks slow. Person don't like the OC. She said, fair. I live in the 40 realm. That's fair enough. But no, listen, 11-0 is amazing. And I want to say this, and then Coach Green, and then 77777. I'm gonna get to you guys. 11-0 is brutally tough. I want to say that anybody who has played sports, anybody who has covered sports, I don't think people understand how hard undefeated is in general, regardless of the level you play at, regardless of the sport you play in, regardless of the conference strength, whatever you want to say. Man, it is so hard to go undefeated. And so 11-0, first time in school history, it's special. And I will say this, man, if you're a Jackson State fan, man, you got to relish in this moment, man. If you're a Holy Cross fan undefeated, you got to relish. I mean, it is hard to go undefeated. That's why it is so rare for teams to go undefeated. Even national championship teams don't go undefeated. It is really, really hard to do. And I think Jackson State, Coach Prom, they get a lot of credit, man, for finishing the season undefeated, man. So I will say that regardless of anybody's feelings about the team, Prom, whatever, you got to give them credit for going undefeated because there are very few teams in the country right now at any level that are undefeated. And you got to give it to them. So I wanted to say that on top of everything from me talking about the game. But listen, I will say this. If you've never been to a Soul Bowl, you got to go. I'm telling you, I've been texting people since I left that this is a must-see game for people. Like I I'm still so excited. And just to kind of give y'all everyone laughed at me. I think it was in this chat and Scotty's chat on the round table. I said the gates opened at 4 a.m. and everyone was like, man, so there were some people in the comments that were like, man, you're tripping, whatever. Okay, so I stayed in Natchez and I woke up about 3:30. I left my hotel about 4 o'clock, man. And if you know, Natchez is probably 40 minutes from the campus of Lorman. And I got off the exit to hit the stretch about 5 o'clock, maybe a little bit before 5 o'clock. And I was on the stretch until after almost 6 o'clock. Like I was on the stretch for that long, that early. Man, like I watched the sun come up from my parking spot in the media parking lot. It was insane. Like I never had to do something like that ever for a game. And I've been to the SEC championship. I've been to all type of games. And man, the traffic was insane. But I got there like it's like 4 or 5 a.m. man. Like that is insane. And if you go, there's a Twitter account. Someone tweeted a picture of my car and in terms of like watching the traffic. I gotta post it eventually. I gotta comment on it. But there was a Jackson State fan. He's a big Jackson State Twitter guy to follow. And he tweeted out a picture of the traffic, and like my car is sitting there in the traffic that morning, man. I was so tired. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. When I got to the media parking lot, I kind of was just chilling. The tailgate I was going to with Mr. Kincaid, they were just getting set up. And I mean, I straight up put my like sun visor in the windshield. And I'm not going to lie, guys, I've zoned out. So listen, if y'all heard snoring, it was me in the car. I slept for about 2.5 hours in the car before the game because it was so early. And then I had no signal. I got on campus at like 6 a.m. and I didn't have signal till 7 p.m. So when my phone finally got hooked up to the Wi-Fi, man, my notifications were going insane because my phone was off for 12 hours on the last weekend of FCS football, and I cover FCS football, so y'all could imagine what that was like. The Bluebloods, you were live at the game. What were the defenses doing to take away Shador's long ball? One, pressure. They were getting pressure on Shador, and also I think he got a little bit of happy feet, and they really didn't take a lot. I mean, early in the game, Rocky, they took a lot of deep shots early. Shador was really, Shador overthrew multiple guys that had a chance to be open. Shador was really long on his passes this weekend, and I don't know if that was his eyes kind of wandering or him overestimating his wide receivers, the cold, whatever. He overthrew multiple deep balls this weekend, and that was the difference. Like in their first red zone opportunity, I think he overthrew 3 in the first drive. He overthrew 3 wide receivers on deep passes. I think it was just they saw early it wasn't there, Rocky, and then outside of that Travis play, they really didn't take a lot of deep shots after that. I was in the press box, D. After the game, I was on the field for the game. After the game, I did the post-game press conferences, and I went up to the press box so I could upload it. I wanted to upload it as quick as possible for you guys. He said, Blue, he was chasing that record. That is true. Other than Willie Gaines, I don't see speed to take off the defense. They really don't have a lot of deep threats. I'll be honest. Travis and Willie Leon are probably the two biggest deep threats. But let me get to these calls real quick, man. I'll go to Coach Green first. Coach Green, you're live, man.
We alive, Blue. We alive.
I know you're feeling good, man. I was talking to J-Max. On the sidelines this weekend. Man, he was kind of keeping me up. I don't know how J-Max got signal, by the way. I need to get on his phone service because he got signal in the game. But he was updating me on the scores, and man, when he said Southern was still in it, I was like, what happened? And he was like, oh, Texas Southern blew a 20-something point lead. I was like, of course they did.
Man, because I was looking and I was expecting PV to win, and I was expecting Texas Southern to win. I ain't gonna lie. I was expecting them 2 games to be win. So I wasn't even really paying attention. And then, I decided to check out the score. I'm like, what? Valley winning? And then I looked at
Then I looked at Alabama game. I was like, oh, hell no. They came back. And I was like, hey, we alive. Now we got one job to do. One job.
Valley winning doesn't surprise me. If you watch the preview, I said I wouldn't be surprised if Valley won. It was the way they won. 27 unanswered in the second half. No way. I would have never bet that. Without Caleb Johnson, without the starting quarterback, zero chance.
Man. Yeah, because it was like a defensive game at first. Nobody really was scoring. And then all of a sudden, they just exploded. But, bruh, that catch by Travis was like insane, bro.
Next level. And I mean, so y'all saw on the highlights, I was on the other side of the field trying to film it.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there, and there was a photographer for Alcorn State next to me. We were talking, and I turned to him. I was like, he caught that. And he looked at me, and he was like, he caught that. I was like, holy crap. Like, that's next level. The body control is unreal for a kid of his age and experience at the college level.
Yeah,
he's insane.
It is. And the crazy part about that catch, when he, even after his other foot when it stepped out of bounds, he caught the ball before putting his other foot down while dragging his toe. So, all you need is one foot in.
Yeah, and that goes back to even the play he made against Texas Southern, where he stopped on a dime, fallen, and like made the dude miss him like he was in the Matrix. The way, and when people who haven't played football before or any sport, the speed of the game in his head is so slow. I mean, it's like he's playing everyone in slow motion. And I don't know, as a freshman, for him to be playing like that now, man, in 2 years, do you know how scary he's going to be?
Man, what? Hey, I'll put it like this. He might be a real Heisman candidate.
Now we can have a conversation. We'll see. But now we can have a real conversation, because that Shedeur for Heisman aged really poorly.
Yeah. But it got his name on the list. It's all about promotion, though. But anyway, let's get to Howard, though. That boy had some nasty cutbacks.
That team has so much talent at running back, and it frustrates me that they don't run the ball as much as they should. But yeah, he's crazy, man. And
this the other thing I'm gonna say that people keep on forgetting, because they talking about, Jackson State, should have blew them out. Alcorn had a tough schedule, so they was built for something like this. They was really built for something like this. So what they did, it shouldn't have really been a shock because of how their schedule was. Do you think so?
I mean, yeah, because Tulane has ended up being pretty damn good. And Stephen F. Austin wins the WAC, if I'm not mistaken, and they played McNeese, who I think they finished second to they were decent in the Southland, I guess. But yeah, and it was also a rivalry game at home, nothing to lose. They had a great game plan to attack the defense. Man, you're looking, ifs play both ways. If they don't call holding on that Howard run that got them to like the 3, and it's a tie game with 6-7 minutes left. It would have been interesting, to say the least, because that was a big call on them for holding.
That strip sack was big.
A fact too, because here's how I'm looking at it. Travis got a pick 6, and that strip sack set Jackson State up at the 2, and they got a touchdown. The offense, because I don't really listen, Savion ran it in, whatever. The defense scored 14 for Jackson State this weekend. Jackson State's offense put 10 legit points on the board, which is extremely interesting if you break it down. Like, that's why I brought up the offense in this post game, is if you really break it down, Jackson State's offense scored 10 points this weekend, and that's got to be concerning if you're a Jackson State fan.
I saw that too. Now, this is another thing that's interesting. Huggins must have been hurt because I ain't seen him in a while.
Wait, who? Huggins?
Yeah.
I thought he played. Maybe I'm thinking of no. I might be thinking of Wiggins.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't see Huggins out there. If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he's been out for a while. So I wonder what type of injury he had.
I don't know. A coach texted me. Okay, so Paris said he's hurt because a Alcorn coach reached out to me after the game and was like, "Hey man, what's up with Malachi? We haven't seen Malachi play in a minute."
Yeah. Now that's another receiver that you could top it off with, and I think if they start using him next year, they have plenty of deep threats then. Because he was actually Shador's security blanket last year.
That's true.
Am I lying?
No, I mean he's not in real. And this year they really don't have a big security blanket. I mean Willie Gaines can stretch the field. Listen, don't get me wrong. Willie Gaines can fly, but I don't think they have a like a vertical because Shane Hooks is a great one-on-one wide receiver, but I don't think his speed necessarily matches up to what Malachi can do at his size.
Yeah, you could just throw it up to him.
And he doesn't have the vert. Like Hooks wins those one-on-one battles because he's 6'6". Malachi can jump in 6'6". Like he is a different level of athlete in terms of those situations.
Yeah. And now let me get to the playoffs and then I'm gonna be out. I feel like the second place team in the OVC between, because not OV. Yeah, it's OVC. The Southern Missouri made it, but I feel like the second place, Southeastern Missouri, but I feel like the second place team should have got in.
I don't. They had a worse resume than FAM, in my opinion.
They did?
So, hang on. Let me pull up everything because I want to make sure I get their Massey rating right, too. Because you're talking about UT Martin, right?
Yeah.
The second place team. Yeah, listen, they had a top 50 strength of schedule. They're sitting at 7-4. They don't have any ranked wins, and they just struggled with Eastern Illinois, who's atrocious. They have a loss to Kennesaw State. They have a loss to Boise State, a loss to Missouri State that aged really bad. They get a win over Lindenwood, first year at the D1 level. They beat a Houston Christian team out of conference that has 0 or 1 wins. They beat a bad Tennessee State team. They might have worse signature wins than FAMU. In my opinion, I think FAMU's resume is better than UT Martin, just in my opinion.
Yeah. So how the top two teams didn't play each other? That's the other thing I was curious about.
With them adding Lindenwood, it kind of got out of hand. And also they have, if I'm not mistaken, until Murray State leaves, they have too many teams to all play each other, if I'm not mistaken. So once Murray State leaves next year, I think they all play each other.
Yeah, because I hated that corn flip. I ain't even lie. I hated that corn flip. I'd rather do it on the field.
Man, it's horrible. And I get why they had to do it because, other conferences have the same issue. Like in the Big Sky, not everyone plays each other, but with the Big Sky, the strength of conference is so much that even though you might not get the auto bid, you'll get in at large bid. If you're the second best team in the Big Sky, you are definitely getting into the playoffs with conferences like the Big South, the OVC. You aren't guaranteed a spot in the playoffs as a number 2 team in your conference because it was so bad. And there's a good argument for that. I think we all agree here. A&T and Gardner Webb, if they don't get the auto bid, they're definitely not in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm. How you felt about Rhode Island getting in?
Okay, so what I was told by a high-level FCS source, Rhode Island and Delaware were up for the last spot. Delaware beating Rhode Island by 21 was the deciding factor on who got in.
To me personally, I don't feel like 5 teams should have got in from the CAA. Should have been 4, but not 5.
I'm with you. I said Montana and Delaware would not get in. Or if I was making the bracket, they would not get in. And you can make a debate on who you put in because I mean, there's some good teams that have a good argument like Mercer, Chattanooga, FAMU, and even I'm blanking on the other team who was one of the ones left out that I thought had a decent chance. Austin P had a chance too. So, but I think Mercer, Chattanooga, and FAMU would be the three teams that I would be most upset about not getting in. Because I thought those three teams, in my opinion, should have the biggest complaint because I understand who Montana lost to, but I think Chattanooga deserved to get in over them. I really do. If I had to rank them, I think Chattanooga would be the most deserving team to jump in, and then you could, probably FAMU and Mercer would be right there with each other.
Well, it's about who's at the table and that's the thing. It's about who's at the table and who's pushing for who. Because they're human. So they got biases. They're human. You can't take away from that.
Well, the thing with me is because here's the question for everybody. And look, I'll just go ahead and skip the slide because we'll go back to my HBCU rankings. But there's the bracket. But let me flip it on you, Coach Green. I'll let people in the chat, and I know Mr. Campbell will probably call in because me and him were talking about it. Let's completely flip roles. If FAMU was sitting at 7-4 with a top Montana Street, the schedule is I think either top 10 or top 15, and your only losses are to top 15 FCS programs, and you've got all this stuff going for you, and a team that's 9-2 with a 108th ranked strength of schedule, no ranked wins, got in over FAMU, what would the narrative be?
You're right.
No, I mean, but let's be honest. What would my chat be right now if a 7-4 FAMU with all the same resume as Montana got left out of the playoffs for a 9-2 team with a 108th ranked strength of schedule, no ranked wins, and a worse? Yeah, they would be. It would be horrible in here. I wouldn't come live because it would be insane.
But this is my other thing. I think they need to do what you do because they need to watch more of the MEAC and SWAC games because they don't do that. And I think another thing that hurt fam, South Carolina was supposed to be good this year, and they wound up not being good this year. That's another thing you can look at too. And I think they ain't say it, and I think they held what Jackson State did for FAMU at the beginning against them.
And that's a big thing because with all the other teams in the playoffs, let's just keep it 100. They've all played some sort of they've all everyone in the playoffs has played another team who's either in the playoffs or played a team in the playoffs. Like you got something to somewhat compare on, and you can't go too far, but let's South Dakota State, Delaware, Fordham, New Hampshire, Holy Cross, William and Mary. Hang on, let me move Mr. Campbell's comment. William and Mary, Gardner Webb, Eastern Kentucky, North Dakota, Weaver State, Montana State, North Dakota State, SEMO, Montana, Idaho, SLU, Samford, Incarnate Word, Elon, Furman, Richmond, and Sac State, I think all played a team who's in the playoffs.
And then this is one of the things I told Scotty one of the issues is to me because I know it happens in basketball a lot. Because I know y'all be wanting us to play out of conference schedule. But if we ask for a home and home, some of these PWIs don't want to give us home and home because I heard it out, somebody once told me, I can't lose to you. And that will make me look bad if I lose to you.
There's
and that's
definitely
one of the
teams
issues
like that.
right there too.
There's definitely teams like that, but you can't. It makes zero sense that the only team to, if I'm not mistaken, the only SWAC team to host an FCS out of conference game this year, I'm trying to think, was PV hosted Incarnate Word, Alcorn State hosted Stephen F. Austin. And I'm trying to think if I'm missing anyone. I think those are the only two that hosted. Grambling had the neutral site with Northwestern State, but you can kind of, I mean, they're both in the state of Louisiana, but did anyone else host an FCS out of conference game?
Right. Because all them teams gonna ask you to come to them, and like Valley, they had everybody at Mercer, so they gonna come.
Oh, Campbell for Jackson. That's fair, but Jackson's going to the Celebration Bowl, so I wasn't really considering them in the and A&M hosted Austin Peay. So you're telling me A&M can get Austin Peay to come, JSU can get Campbell, Stephen F. Austin is going to go to Lorman, Mississippi, to play Alcorn State. Grambling can get Northwestern State to agree to a neutral site, but FAMU couldn't get no one to come to Bragg. Coach Green, you can't convince me of that. There's no way.
That's possibility though. It's still a possibility because I know from experience.
So you think FAMU called X number of teams, and every single person turned them down to come play them?
It's a high possibility.
I doubt it. If you can convince someone to come play Alcorn State and Lorman,
if I didn't experience it, I would be like, "You're right," but it's still a high possibility because I experienced it. It's a high possibility. That's the only thing I'm saying. But you could be right, but you also could be wrong.
Okay,
it's a possibility in it.
Let me ask the chat. When is the last FCS out of conference game that FAMU played in regular season? Could someone name it?
It's only been a HBCU
2 years,
like South Carolina.
No. Like playoff team, like not a team from the MEAC, like FCS playoff out of conference team.
That's a good question. That's something you probably get asked Mr. Cameron about.
Because they played South Carolina State, they got it. But Jordan said they played Samford a while ago. 2015, Coach Green. Someone's got to explain it to me, because there's 2015. You got people signing up to go get 50 piece by North Dakota State, but no one's coming to Bragg.
For the money. That's why they're going off the coast, for the money.
Oh, I don't know, man. Listen,
guarantee game. Valley at the Mercer. A&T did it because they wanted to prove something, but they wound up falling off during COVID. So
yeah, they got screwed. I would have paid. Yeah. I don't know about you guys. I would have paid money in, was it 2019, 2020 to see A&T play North Dakota State that year. It's just not.
That would have been a better judgment.
Here's my thing, because Jackson has came out and said, we do not care about the playoffs. It's Celebration Bowl or we go home. They have made it as clear as day that they don't care. And I'm cool with that. Listen, they don't care. Great. But FAMU has consistently said, man, listen, we would love to see the Celebration Bowl, but man, listen, we would also love to go to the playoffs. Jackson State's like, man, we don't care. We don't want to go to the playoffs. Promise. Came out and said it. If you want to go to the playoffs so bad and leverage your options of, if we don't win the conference, we need to go to the playoffs, then I need your schedule to reflect that. Albany State, don't play. Don't play them. Like, get you a team that's going to help your resume.
Cameron spoke about that. Guaranteed home game they wanted, because you want to get so many home games, so they need to keep a extra home game.
Okay, well, if that's the case, then you got to leverage. Would you want a guaranteed home game, or do you want to get to the playoffs? If you want a guaranteed home game, cool, perfect.
Well, what if they beat North Carolina? Would that help them?
If they beat North Carolina, hell yeah. North Carolina is ranked in the Well, they lost to Georgia Tech this week. They were ranked this week. They won't be next week, because they just lost to Georgia Tech with the third-string quarterback. But yes, beating North Carolina would have been huge. Steve said the last out-of-conference game was 04 versus Nicholls State. But Coach Green, man, the call lines are blowing up now, man. But I'm gonna let you go, man. Appreciate you calling in.
Yeah, no problem.
7777, you're live.
What's going on, Blue?
What's good, man?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
you're live.
I just got a question for you, man. If Jackson State was in the playoffs, how far do you think they would have went?
It depends on where they were seated, but I did a whole interview with HBCU Sports, me, BJ Jones, and Sam Herder, and I think they can get to the quarterfinals, depending on what the matchup was. And then, like I say, when you get to the quarterfinals, anything can happen because it's all based on matchup and where the game is. And so I think they potentially could get a round or two further, but I think quarterfinals is probably where I put them right now. Because I think they would probably get a bye week. They'd probably host a game in the second round, win that one. I think quarterfinals right now would be where I put it.
Okay. I mean, that was basically it, man. And I got one more question for you. How in the world are you watching all these games, man? Because you have a lot of information about a whole lot of schools, bro. Like, bro, how do you do it?
If you just watch me on, because Saturday night, Sundays, up until the show, man, it is literally just watching film, doing research for the show, getting things ready, man. Like and if I don't travel for a game, man, I got a bunch of TVs. I got a desktop, a screen, a laptop, and multiple TVs in here, man.
Wow. Yeah, because you you're like every conference, every player, and every team. I'm like, what? How does he do it? Okay, man. I appreciate it, bro.
Hey, appreciate you, man. Thanks for calling in.
Okay. Yes, sir.
There you go, Ryan. Subscribe to ESPN Plus. If you're an FCS person that just wants to watch a lot of football, ESPN Plus has everything. Yeah, that's where you get everything. ESPN Plus. If you're an FCS person, 8401, you're live.
Yes, that's where you get everything.
How you doing, Blue?
What's good, man?
Blue. Hey, man, this is my first time calling. This is Big Boss from up north, man. I've been listening to you, man, and I want to first of all tell you this. I'm going to be real quick. I need 60 seconds. You're the best in the West, man. But I was there when my dad had me there when we lost the game with two delay of games against FAMU in 78 or whatever year that was when FAMU won. I've been at Stephen F. Austin. I've been to Eastern Illinois when we was in those games. Freezing cold, W.C. Gordon. We've been to all those games that made no money, no sense. So I wish callers would please, man, what you do for HBCU and what you do for this FCS, man, I wish people would concentrate on these teams and stop asking these so ignorant questions and do your research on the internet. They should do their research before they call you, asking you something so stupid about playoff scenarios. Why you shouldn't have to tell people why the Turkey Bowl or the Bayou Classic, why these certain situations. I've been doing that since I was 18 years old. You should not have to explain that to a caller. So people, please stop. I mean, don't be so ignorant of what's been going on for 30 years. And I appreciate what you do, man. But I'm a Jackson State graduate. I'm a JSU. I like the way we got hit in the mouth. We got a real problem going to Atlanta. We got a real problem. I don't want to see a team that we blowed out. 35 or whatever. I don't want to see Southern come back.
I want to see somebody hungry.
I agree. Okay, I might be in the minority here. I would rather PV go to the SWAC
I would
championship.
love to see TV instead of Southern. I'm sorry for cutting you off, but go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. Because I get for the money, for the attendance, for the, you know, the rivalry, whatever. But man, you want a team that rolled up into Jackson just a handful of weeks ago and got beat 35-0, blanked. You want to see that again. Like,
They
that
want to
interests
see
you.
them out. You don't want to roll those dice back. What do we have to win? They got everything. They throwing dice at the casino. They bringing the kitchen sink.
I think PV would be an interesting matchup. Just in terms, because one, we haven't seen it, and man, I don't personally think, no offense to any Southern fans, there is nothing that I've seen from Southern since that Jackson State game to make me excited about this matchup. At this point, with how, listen, I'm for the SWAC breaking the rules, because PV lost, Alcorn lost, Texas Southern lost. If Southern loses, PV goes to the SWAC championship anyway. Man, if all four of them lose their final game, can we just let FAMU in? They didn't get into the playoffs. Can we just put FAMU in? I'd rather see a FAMU matchup than a Southern matchup.
Blue, Blue, hold on, Blue. I keep my ears. They say don't go to hell with the ears of 100. What they say, the ears of a baby and the tongue of a 100-year-old man. You got a great show. You do a great job. But let me tell you one thing about them Jaguars and the Jackson. I'm a Jackson State through and through my blood. I died for Jackson State. Them Jaguars want to come and do what they want to do. But the SWAC, you think at one time the SWAC gonna let Grambling upset Southern and miss the money? Let's get this one thing, and I hate to just talk out loud. Let's talk out loud. The championship game in Jackson, the SWAC championship game, is not Jackson State. That's a SWAC event. The SWAC get the money. The SWAC get the concession stand. The SWAC get, I don't know if they get the park, and I don't want to overspeak, but the SWAC is in control of the money. What's the biggest show in Jackson for that SWAC championship game? Southern Baton Rouge. And it's going to work out that way. And I hate to be the man on the wall, but Blue, it ain't your place to say it. They ain't going to miss that money. Grambling don't stand a chance. They gonna throw a flag for Grambling bus pulling up to the Superdome. Grambling gonna be flagged for pulling up to the Superdome early.
You might be right. Listen, you're the second or third person that has mentioned that. There was a game earlier this year that I covered. Oklahoma State, Texas. Oklahoma State had 0 penalties for 0 yards, and Texas had 14 penalties for 189. So I'm assuming that's what you think is going to happen this weekend on Saturday.
Yes. That's a $1 million miss if it's Grambling fan base versus Southern fan. And well, Grambling is out of it, but Prairie View's fan base. I'm sorry to say it out loud. I'm on a farm up here in northern Illinois. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. I'm a Jackson State graduate. I'm the big boss from up north. And I'm just telling it like it is. And I love your show, man. What you do, I know when when we went to Georgia Southern, when I saw all these players, oh my God, I'm lost for words. But I saw us get our brains beat out. And I saw when we didn't get our brains beat out. And I'm going to close out with this. In my closing, I want to say this, Blue. When you see Coach Prime with gloves on and we cold at 41 and whatever degrees I saw, and I've been to games when we played Eastern Illinois, and I was at games when we played Marshall, And when Randy Moss was at Marshall, I've been to those games. I was there. So if we cold in the South, we need to just go to Celebration Bowl and raise our hand and say hallelujah. Because if we cold in the South, I was out this morning feeding my deer corn at 18 degrees with a wind chill of 16 below. So we need to just go to Celebration Bowl, go down Mercedes-Benz Stadium, let them turn the heat up and say hallelujah. Stop talking that we want to go into the playoffs. Go and see Montana. Go and see North Dakota State. When our coach got gloves on at Alcorn. Stop it. Stop it. We are not, when that kid from Alcorn running off tackle, South Dakota State saw that. South Dakota State will run it straight off. They will take 4 yards of carry. 4 yards of carry, 4 yards of carry, first down, 4 yards of carry, dump off to the tight end, 4 yards of carry. They will do that. And that's boring. Our cheerleaders, they don't do cheerleaders in J-sets. They do wins. We're not ready. We're getting there. We're not ready. Thank you for what you do, Blue. Thank you for your time. I've never called on any show in my life, but I got to give you your credit, man, because you go to those games and you know what you're talking about. But people need to just Google some research and stop talking this crazy talk about we need to go to the playoffs. It's crazy talk. You have to tell people every week the reason why these teams are not eligible. You do your research. They shouldn't waste time on your show where you got to tell people every week why these teams can't go to the playoffs. I've been knowing that since I was a kid. But thank you for what you do, man. You the baddest in the game. If you separate yourself from you know who, you'll be the greatest in the game. Talk to you later.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you for calling in. That was a GOAT level call. And listen, the only way to follow that type of call is by bringing Mr. Campbell on. Mr. Campbell, you're live. You got to follow that up, man.
It's impossible. That's impossible. And I'm good at this. But you got to clip that, Blue. Just have a whole segment on that alone.
Man, when he started, I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't think we were going down that road, man. But, oh, man.
Look, Blue, I'm calling in to stop people believing the few folks on Twitter about FAMU delusion. And let me clear something up. 9-2 last year is not the same 9-2 we had this year. And that's where the confusion's coming in at. So you got people saying, oh, FAMU was 9-2 last year and we got in. FAMU was 9-2 this year. Why we didn't get in? See, this is where the problem comes in at. And also, we joined the SWAC to win the SWAC championship. When you win the SWAC championship, you go to the Celebration Bowl. That's a fact. So all this, should we be in the playoffs, should we not? We did not have the body of work like we had last year. We were a more dominant team. And this is the thing about it. What my biggest problem is, I just wish that the NCAA would do a better job explaining how at-large teams are picked. Because it is not a simple rule. It's not just simply strength of schedule, because that was it. Then there would be no argument for FAMU. But what FAMU does is look and say, okay, well, this team got in, but that team didn't get in. Why we didn't get in? We're 9-2, but this team is 7-4. And for anybody, and this happens in the basketball tournament all the time, especially with the mid-majors, they'll go 30-2, and they won't get in. And then, as my guy, somebody called, somebody that's the 19 from the ACC that's 18-13 gets in. So this is not a new argument. Wins versus quality losses. That has always been an argument. Should you win more, or should you play a tougher schedule and then have quality losses? So we need to stop that. And the thing about it is FAMU only has 3 games to play around with. And because we don't have that many home games. So we got to play that one Power 5 school to get a check. We're going to play a traditional rival, HBCU. That'll be Tennessee State, or like we did South Carolina State. And then we got that one game that we got to have for home, which any school, Auburn does it, Alabama does it. Every one of those schools had that one money game so to pay the bills. And this is the problem that we have, is that we have to play these money games, and then we have this argument. But I'm just going to tell all the FAMU people, this will be a moot point if we had to beat Jackson State. This would be if we were playing for the SWAC championship in Tallahassee, nobody would care. So that's where the focus should be. Win the conference. Win the conference. Because if we won the conference, we wouldn't care about the playoffs. So that's what my biggest issue is that we're not even focusing on the main thing. We're focusing on something secondary. Because, again, we're going to have to play. This is nothing. Those 3 games, I can go back 20 years, and we schedule those same 3 games, and you could just flip them around. Arkansas, Georgia, Ohio State. And every time we play those games, it's because of money. So we took that game away. I said this on Scotty's show. Do we play Samford? No, we can't play Samford because we need the money from North Carolina. So that's being realistic, not being delusional. And I hate that people are bringing up delusional people saying that's FAMU folks. FAMU people know about the play because we are the only HBCU that actually won playoff games. Ain't none of these jokers won a playoff game. They don't even know what it is. We actually do. But we also want to get to the Celebration Bowl because we were in the MEAC and now we're in the SWAC. This is just a fact. So, Blue, I do have a question for you. On the teams that got in, was there a discrepancy with strength of schedule for the at-large team? Was there a team that people said, well, their strength of schedule was not as strong, but they got in? Because I've been trying to get a straight answer on that.
The lowest, so just in terms of at-large bids, right? Because auto bids, with the Pioneer League having one, I still don't deserve, but the lowest strength of schedule of an at-large bid was Fordham. And if I'm not mistaken, let me just double check my numbers. I want to make sure I say it right because people will be quick to be like, Blue, you don't know what you're talking about. Fordham had the 78th ranked strength of schedule. And as for the at-large bids, that was the lowest. And they were 9-2 as well. They had a 1-point loss to number 5 Holy Cross on the road in overtime. And their other loss was a 7-point loss to an FBS school.
So was there an FCS team that had a higher strength of schedule that didn't get in? That should have gotten in?
Over Fordham?
Yes.
No, probably not. I was hoping Fordham got in, really and truly. I thought they deserved it.
Okay, so that's why. So to me, then the argument is over. So you're telling me it's a strength of schedule argument. We didn't have it. We're 9-2. That's it. That's it. And I think that's where the problem is because people are looking from 9-2 last year and think it's the same 9-2 this year. It's not. It's different.
And the bubble,
we just got to own that.
The bubble is way deeper this year too than it was last year. Last year, there was maybe 3 teams that realistically had a shot at the end of the day. And I really do think the playoff committee could say their first out was Chattanooga, Austin Peay, Rhode Island, FAMU. I think the Delaware got in over Rhode Island because of the head-to-head win. I think that happened. I think Austin Peay got dinged because the ASUN WAC thing was really weird, and it just I think they kept them out for that reason. And also, they got some really bad losses in that 4 losses. And then Chattanooga was kind of that bubble team that picked Montana over. But I really do think the playoff committee might never admit it. I think the 9-2 team with an average strength of schedule was Fordham versus FAMU. And because Fordham's resume was better than FAMU's, they let a 9-2 Fordham in rather than a 9-2 Florida A&M.
And Blue, I'm going to make this and then I'll jump off. But I know you don't remember, but I'm just going to make you remember. Me and you had the same conversation when we were in the same spot going into Bethune, and me and you talked about, it was like 4 teams that had to lose for FAMU to get in, and basically 3 of the 4 teams lost. Remember that? We talked about this. So last year, it just fell our way. Because I think it was like Mercer had to lose and somebody else had to lose, and like all of them lost like on the last weekend. And we got in. It didn't happen this year. So I think we need to be honest about this and not, try to make something that's not. Like I said, bottom line is we came to the SWAC to win the SWAC. Beat Jackson State. That's all we got to do. That's the bottom line. And that's all I care about. So that's all I got, man. Beat Jackson State, win the conference.
I agree. And I know this year will be a big year in recruiting for FAMU, man. But Mr. Campbell, always appreciate you calling in.
Hey, man, thanks a lot, Blue. Love the show. Thanks. Good job, nephew.
Appreciate you. All right, we got it. Let's see. 7240. You're live.
Hello?
You're live.
Okay, Blue. Can you hear me, Blue?
Yeah, you're good to go, man.
Hello? Okay, I got a question. First of all, a couple questions. The automatic bids went to the conference champions, right?
Yeah.
Now, why is it that two conferences got 4 teams in, and two conferences got 3 teams in, and 4 conferences got 2 teams in? How does that work?
Okay, so all the conferences in FCS outside of the SWAC, MEAC, and Ivy League, the conference champion gets an auto bid. And then the rest of the playoff spots are at large bids where the committee takes the other teams and lets teams in based on their resume. So like in the Big Sky, you have one team that gets the auto bid, but then you got Montana State, Sac State, Montana, Weber State, Idaho. All of those teams' resumes were good enough to get in, according to the committee, and so that's why they went in. So like SLU, Southeastern Louisiana, won the Southland, but Incarnate Word went 10-1 with an FBS win, so they got a seed as an at-large bid. So you have auto bids for conference champions. Then the rest of the spots in the bracket are at large bids that can go to any conference. So this year, the Big Sky has 5 teams. Next year, they could have 3. The SoCon has 2 this year. Next year, they could have 4. Like, there's no set amount of teams in the playoffs that a team can or can't have.
So I guess my question is, another question is, measuring strength of schedule. Are you measuring a schedule, that strength of schedule, based on who they play in the FC? What is it called? FCS? Or are you measuring against like FBS schools?
No, the strength of schedule that I use is just
like,
FCS schools.
Like for instance, Idaho only plays like the teams in the conference, and then play other FCS schools. I'm not sure how that's measuring as far as being strength of schedule. To me, it's, to be honest with you, it's like they're disrespecting the SWAC. And in order to, I guess, get some respect, is that the SWAC schools have to play the FCS schools like a Idaho or a Montana State, which is not economically, it's not feasible to play them, to go all the way to Montana, to play Montana. But in order to get recognition from the committee to be even thought about being in the playoffs, you have to play one of those schools.
Well,
correct?
there's top 25 teams in the area of the SWAC. You had top 25 teams in Tennessee, in Louisiana, in East Texas, in South Carolina, in North Carolina, in Georgia, in Alabama, like in Kentucky, in Missouri, and Arkansas has had a team right in recently. So you don't have to go play Montana. You just have like what's stopping you from playing Samford?
Now, also, my last question is, who are the members of the committee? Where are they come? How are they selected? Is it sports writers? Is it randomly picked, or how is that? How does that go?
So on the playoff committee, it's a 3-year term, and then it rotates. So every single conference that has an auto bid has one athletic director selected to represent that conference on the committee. So every conference in the FCS outside of the SWAC, MEAC, and Ivy League have a representative on the committee, and it rotates every 3 years to another school in the conference. So it's made up of athletic directors in the respective conferences, and then they rotate every 3 years. So like Hampton's AD was on the playoff committee for the past, I think, 2 or 3 years. And then this year it just rotated off that someone else in the CAA has now taken that spot. That way you don't have anyone on the committee for, forever. And then if they switch conferences, they'll replace that person. But that way you kind of keep a rotating door, and it's all the conferences are equally represented at the table.
Okay, another question is why not the Ivy League?
They opted out of the playoffs, just like the
Yale.
SWAC and MEAC.
Okay. So their champion go to a bowl game or something like that, or what?
No, their season just ends. Like they win the Ivy League championship, and that's it for the Ivy League in football.
Oh wow, that's strange. Okay, all right then. So the SWAC don't have any votes then, huh? Or the MEAC.
Well, why should they? Like, let me throw it at you like this: why should they have a vote on something that they didn't want to participate in?
Okay. I got you.
It would be like this: if the SWAC and MEAC decided to make the Celebration Bowl a 14 playoff, why would you want an AD at Montana State to be on the committee to select who goes?
I got you. So let me ask you this question then: is it possible that based on the rankings, is it possible that like a Jackson State could win the national title?
No, because they don't play in the playoffs.
So it's only coming from the playoff, even though they ranked in the top 5.
Yeah, because there's there's a whole playoffs and a national championship game. So why would you give the national championship to someone who didn't want to play in the playoffs?
But they probably could be like, could they be like number 1 on the coaches poll?
No, they couldn't. The coach, if Jackson State is not going to be number 1 in a poll at the end of the season, like the national champion is the team who wins the national championship. Like it would be worse. It would be worse than Howard claiming they won the MEAC this year. Like you can't. Yeah, if it would be a UCF type situation where you would have to claim a fake national title if that happened.
Okay. All right, then. Appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Hey, appreciate you. Leon's so stupid. He said JSU be the be the number 1 in the North Pole. Oh man. 9834, you're live.
What's up, Blue?
What's good, man?
All right, this Marcus from Virginia, bro. I want to give a shout out to William and Mary and the Richmond Spiders in the CAA. CAA got 5 teams in the playoffs. What you think about that, Blue?
I think the only team that was super questionable is Delaware, just because of that they ended the season so poorly, and losing to Villanova last week was not a great look, to be honest with you. And I think I would have personally picked Chattanooga over Delaware, just in my opinion. But I understand why Delaware made it with the FBS win. Like I understand how the committee saw it, but in my opinion, I think Chattanooga should have been considered for that spot over Delaware.
I would have thought they would have taken Richmond out after they lost to William and Mary yesterday.
No, wait. So Richmond taken out just because they lost to William and Mary last? They're 8-3. They're 8-3 with what? 1, 2, 3 ranked wins, and one of their losses is to Virginia, a Power 5 program, and then a double overtime loss to Elon, who's a top 15 team. no chance. Richmond was locked in regardless of what happened this weekend. Same for William and Mary. The two CAA teams that were on the bubble were the three really, because one got left out: Delaware, Rhode Island, and New Hampshire. Those were the three teams on the bubble, and due to Rhode Island not beating either of those teams, that's why they were the CAA team on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I thought my prediction would have been the original four that the CAA teams minus Rhode Island and Delaware. But I had William and Mary, Richmond, New Hampshire, and Elon.
Yeah, that's I had it.
And my bubble team was Delaware or either Rhode Island.
So what I was told is the reason Rhode Island didn't get in over Delaware is because Delaware has the head-to-head. That's what kept Rhode Island out. And I get that. That's a great when you have hard decisions, easy deciding factors like that, you always have to take them. So that's why Rhode Island got left out. I would be interested to hear their reasoning on Delaware and Montana over Chattanooga, but I would have to imagine that the Montana losing to all top 10 teams just about, and also being competitive in all those except for Montana State is probably why they got in, and their strength of schedule is top 15. But Delaware and Montana are still questionable for me in terms of the playoffs. But I say they're questionable now based on resume. But if Delaware wins this weekend and goes and upset South Dakota State, or Montana wins, they probably are going to win this round and goes and beats North Dakota State, then man, it's going to be a moot point at the end of the day anyway, because if they pull off those upsets, then everyone's going to have hindsight and say they belonged in the playoffs.
Absolutely. Okay. And also, man, it's not that people are disrespecting the SWAC. What the SWAC needs to do is play better competition. They need to go to these schools like UT Martin, Chattanooga. Let's FAMU can they schedule a game to Austin P or somebody like that? You know, they need to start playing Division II teams and schedule other teams like that, so they'll have a better schedule. That way their playoff resume will look better too. So I don't think it's disrespect. They just need to play better competition. That's all.
Hey man, I appreciate the call, man. I'm about to wrap up the show, man, but definitely appreciate you calling in.
All right, thanks.
All right. So listen, we got the playoff talk out the way. I still got to go through my top 10 HBCU teams real quick. It really didn't have any changes. I guess it's the final one of the year up until this weekend. But man, some big round one matchups to say the least, man. I think some of the ones I'm most interested in, Elon Furman is going to be an amazing game to watch. I'm very interested to see who comes out of that matchup. You have Elon's front seven versus Furman's rushing attack, and Tyler Huff being a dual threat quarterback. That one's going to be an intense game, and I think that's going to be one of the better round one matchups of the schedule. Also, Idaho, Southeastern Louisiana is going to be. Man, I'm so excited for that one, and that's probably going. That's probably going to be the game. I messaged DSID tonight. I'm sure I'll hear back tomorrow, but I'm most likely going to be at Southeastern Louisiana versus Idaho this weekend, man. And also, what's the opportunity to also come see Idaho play in Louisiana? Very rarely. Also, Southeastern Louisiana, man, a beautiful campus, beautiful stadium. I would love to be back at that one. And then if I don't go to SLU Idaho D, I don't know which one I would go to. I'd probably ride up to Elon versus Furman, to be honest with you. That'd probably be the other one I would go and see if I don't go to SLU Idaho. And in the second round, because all the host sites are there, okay, I promised my guy Ryan, if Holy Cross Fordham played again, I would go. So I would have to find a way to make it up to Holy Cross for that one in the cold up in New York. But if not that one, I'm probably going to go to the Incarnate Word game. whoever Incarnate Word plays between Furman and Elon. I've got to see both of those teams in person. I've got to see all three of those, but Incarnate Word reached out and really wanted me to come to a home game, so I'm probably going to make it to the UIW game. And then round 3, man, I won't know that one till later because I don't even know who's going to win the first ones. But that will kind of be my playoff schedule as of now. Then also I'm going to be at the Celebration Bowl, so there will be no the semifinal weekend, or is it the semifinal or quarterfinal weekend is the Celebration Bowl. I won't be going to a playoff game. I'll be at the Celebration Bowl for that one. I'm sure everyone is happy that I'll be covering that one. That's a game I have to cover. But listen, I'm gonna move my HBCU top 10 to the next show. But real quick, man, I'm sure y'all can tell the teams because we've talked about it a million times. But this is just the blind resume test that the committee probably looked at. And you have Team A, 8 D1 wins, sub 100 strength of schedule, 0 ranked wins, 0 combined 0 FBS wins. Combined opponent record of FCS teams is 39-56. Team B, 71 wins, 41st strength of schedule, a ranked win, an FBS win, a combined FCS record of 63-47. You have Team C, 7 wins, 40th strength of schedule, 1 ranked win, 0 FBS wins, a combined FCS opponent record of 36-63. And Team D, 71 wins, 17th ranked strength of schedule, no ranked wins, no FBS wins, but a combined opponent record of 56-65. So I'll just let y'all comment real quick because I already know y'all know what probably 2 of these teams are. But who, if you're the committee, would you be given that spot in the FCS playoffs? Realistically, because we like some of y'all know who some of these are, but just blind resume test. Who has the best resume without brand name or anything like that? We got Team B. Yeah, I figure, Serve, you would know all the teams. So Serve says Team B on this one. He said Delaware will blow. I don't know if Delaware will blow out Coastal Carolina. Team B. Lots of Team Bs already. I figured Team B would probably be the pick there. Let's see. So UIW is so consistent. Ryan, I got you, man. I promised you I would come up to Holy Cross if y'all got that matchup. The bottom line is that they are taking the best strength schedule. We got a bunch of Team Bs. Lawrence said Team C on this one, but man, listen. Team A, FAMU. Team B, Delaware. Team C, Austin P. Team D is Montana. So there was a lot of people. I just want to say this: there was a lot of people in the chat complaining that Delaware was that 5th CAA team, and a lot of people were picking them just based off blind resume. So I just want to say like that is something that this is what the committee does in terms of picking teams. So I understand, being upset, but listen, at the end of the day, man, you got to base it off of something. So Delaware and Montana were the 2 teams. I put Austin P in here because they were one of the at-large teams here. Let's see. He said no worries if UIW's blowing you off. I respect that. We got a lot of Team D's and B's in here for that one. Let's see. Check the weather along that route. It's winter. Yeah, man. I'm gonna have to do a lot of research. If I go to Holy Cross, I'm flying, and the big thing. The reason I don't like to fly to a lot of places is that there's some places that still, like renting a car at my age is still really hard because I'm not even 26 yet. So that's why I usually don't fly to places, and that's why I usually drive. It's because it's because of that. So I usually just drive up there so I can have my car with me. He said Delaware doesn't deserve it over the SoCon teams. I agree. I definitely agree. He said Holy Cross is a church. I know, man. Still super young, but listen. Quick recap, man. UIW, huge win over Northwestern State. St. Francis wins the NEC this year with a win over Merrimack. Gardner Webb locks up the auto bid for the Big South with a win over A&T. Yale beats Harvard. NDSU with a big win over North Dakota. Sac State ruins UC Davis's playoff hopes. Samford double overtime victory over Mercer ends the Bears' playoff chances, also locks up a seed for Samford in a huge development. William and Mary wins the CAA with a win over Richmond. Valley and A&M caused chaos in the West. FAMU with a big Florida Classic win over Bethune, and Howard stomps Morgan State. Montana State rushes all over Montana in a big win this week, and Jackson State wins a big game against Alcorn in the Soul Bowl. Man, I had an absolute blast at that game. But listen, guys, hit the like button. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Comment any other questions, man. Listen, this week will be a little bit different because Thursday's Thanksgiving, so I'm sure we're probably going to have to move the roundtable. And I got a short drive to southeastern Louisiana, so I'm probably not going to be traveling on Friday. So I'm assuming we're probably going to do the roundtable sometime after Thanksgiving because I won't be traveling until Saturday. But listen, preview still Wednesday night, man. So make sure to tune into that. We're gonna preview the first round of the playoffs, the Bayou Classic, the Turkey Day Classic, and just talk about some general FCS stuff. Did I post the NSU game? No, I didn't. But Norfolk State beat South Carolina State, and South Carolina State finishes 3-8, which is just insane, man. Just insane. But I didn't post that one, man. We had so much to talk about that I left that one off. But listen, guys, like button. Make sure to subscribe. Check out the post-game press conferences for both Fred McNair and Dion on the channel. And on top of that, we got highlights from the Jackson State Alcorn State game posted now. Stay tuned for the photo gallery. I'll post it on the community page when it's finally up on the website. But until next time, guys, the Blue Bloods are out.